going to call to order.
Same, and it's
I'm going to call to order the May 19th, 2025 meeting of the City of Concord Finance Committee. I will read the roll call. Take the roll, excuse me. Councilor Brown, absent. Mayor Champlin is present. Councilor Fennessy.
Present.
Councilor Foote is delayed. Councilor Grady Sexton.
here.
Councilor Horn.
Here.
Councilor Keach.
Delayed, but here.
I don't know how to interpret that, but I'll let it go.
Leave it alone.
Councilor Kretovic.
Here.
Councilor Kurtz.
Here.
Councilor McLaughlin.
Here.
Councilor McNamara.
Here.
Councilor Schlosser. Here. Councilor Schultz.
Here.
Councilor Seku is delayed, I believe. Councilor Todd.
Fully here.
And we're so happy. So happy.
The trend.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to accept or to approve the minutes of the May 15th, 2025 meeting of the City of Concord Finance Committee.
Move approval. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The minutes are adopted. Before we pass things off to the city manager, I just wanted to apprise the council of some good news. We were notified late last week and officially today that the City of Concord has been awarded a $678,000 federal EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, Brownfields grant for the cleanup of the Concord Stables building, which, for those who don't know, are the buildings that are in what is now the parking lot for Concord High School. We are looking forward to cleaning that up, removing the toxic waste that's the result of, that used to be the old city stables, and then I believe the city garage briefly, cleaning that up and making it acceptable for and safe for human use again. So kudos to city manager, to his staff, Beth Fenstermacher and others who I think Beth Fenstermacher put together the application, and it was a successful application. Mr. City Manager, would you like to add any comments?
No, as you know, we applied a year ago, worked with EPA to tighten up the application, and they were great to work with, and we were successful this year, and we look forward to start to work on that project. And thank you for and I think the appropriation the council made relatively recently to have us button up and weatherize the facility so it would not deteriorate any further was a very good investment and showed the federal government that we were committed to doing it, and that really, I think, really helped. So,
thank you. Mr. City Manager.
Okay. So tonight we will review general government, police, fire, general services, and then have a public hearing at the end. The first item on the agenda is item number 4, which is general government. And page 70 is a summary of all the departments in this section. And we're going to start on page, if you scroll over to page 72, we'll start on the city manager's budget. There are no other revenues budgeted for fiscal year 2026. The revised budget and the projected amount for fiscal year 25 is the New Hampshire Business and Economic Affairs Municipal Per Unit Grant that was transferred to the reserve for future use, which we'll talk about at a future meeting. So you see that revised under 2025, the $1.14 million, that is the grant you received from the state for all the great housing work that you've done. Again, community development put together that grant application. We received those monies. They're reflected here, and then you put them into reserve to use at a future date. So that's why you see those dollars there. For expenses budget are down $157,000 or 20%. So the $150,000 in event funding for 25 that was from fiscal year 25 is not continued in fiscal year 26 because that's money that you've taken out in the past out of reserve accounts. I didn't want to presume that you'd want to do that unless you want to do it again, and then what amount you want to do it for, and that's an action you generally take at the end of the budget depending on where you are. So that's why that's down $157,000 in total. The difference that you see in the rest of the budget is increases in wages and benefits and other operational changes, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have regarding the city manager's budget.
Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, please proceed.
So you'll want to scroll to page 75 under the legal department. And the revenues are up $1,800 or 2%, and these are fees for the prosecutorial services, as you know, we provide to Bow, Dumbarton, Loudon. That helps offset some of our costs. That works out very good, or well, I should say. It's a good arrangement. It has been for years. Expenses budget are down $13,000 or 1%, and this is due to wage changes and benefit decreases due to staffing changes. So while there were increase in wages due to the approvals that you have made, just because of changes in staff, when people with more experience left, new people came in at lower levels, so therefore you see an actual reduction. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Kurtz.
Yeah, thank you. Just in the temporary under 2025 projected, I see an expense but none budgeted for 2026. Do we not anticipate having any
Temporary
employees?
Correct.
Okay.
That was a measure because we had vacancies
Okay.
that I had allowed them to go forward and do that, and they very much managed that well. You can see if you look over to 24, you see the actual same situation. It's
Okay.
During vacancies.
And we have vacancies filled at this time. I'm sorry, follow up.
Follow up?
Thank you. And so we have the vacancies we were dealing with are filled.
Gratefully, the whole department's full,
Wonderful, thank you.
Councilor Schultz.
Thank you. In the rent line item, is that for space or for equipment or?
That's rent space. So, as you recall, the human services, you'll see that in human services, and here it's split the cost for the office space we rent down at Horseshoe Pond. So if you, for example, it's a great question. It's not a leading question. We didn't talk about this beforehand. If you end up eventually approving a police station, a new police station, you would actually move the prosecutorial services to the police station and eliminate that cost.
Follow up?
And that also includes our city welfare office
The
at
human
Horseshoe.
correct, that's
Are
right.
there any,
Follow up?
are there any other city?
Just those, I'm sorry, just those two
Yeah.
are the ones we're releasing here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, please proceed.
So next, you'll want to turn to page 79, or move to page 79. Again, this is all on the web. Everybody can see this at home if they'd like to follow it. So on page 79, this is for the assessing department, and revenues budget to budget are up $68,000 or 9%. And this is for payments in lieu of taxes. You can see that line. And really the big number there, the Briar Hydro revenues is up budgeted higher in fiscal year 26 by $39,000. That piece is increasing. And all the other pilots are also payments in lieu of taxes are also going up in different amounts. So that makes up the difference. Expenses budget to budget are up $38,000, so about half that, the revenue, and that's 4%, and that's due to wage benefit changes, training, and services. So remember the agreements that you made with folks, the contracts and whatnot, they're reflected here. Glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may, I actually just have a question about the, if you happen to know it, how the revaluation process is going, and then if folks wanted to get an update as to where things are at, basically. Is what we have on the, do you know if what we have on the website is updated currently, or is it?
Why don't I bring John up, and it's going great. No, why don't I bring John up?
Thank you.
And if he would give you, might as well hear right from him, an update as of today.
And that includes the when, like which,
The neighborhoods. And,
Yeah, yeah.
This one's not taken. I'm wide enough that I need both.
Welcome, John.
3 computers in
evening.
front of us.
So specifically
I'm sorry, John, could you identify yourself, not
Sure.
for us, but for the folks at home?
Sure, Jonathan Rice, Director of Real Estate Assessments, that's the word. It's quite a title, so I have to remember all the words in order, so. The revaluation specifically, the measuring list project that's going on, the information on the website is accurate, neighborhood-wise. We don't typically put an end date for finishing neighborhoods because it does take a while to get through the neighborhoods. We want to be certain all properties are visited before we put an end date in there. So we are anticipating moving on to the next neighborhood probably in the next, I'll say, couple weeks. We asked the vendor to provide us with that update on when they're going to be moving to the next neighborhood. So the project itself is going well at the current moment. Our vendor struggles like anyone else with staffing. There have been some bumps in the road with having qualified and trained professionals come in and do the work. We do monitor it. We have our assessors doing quality control, checking their work to assure that we're getting the work product we want for the money that the city is and the taxpayers are investing in the project. So.
Follow-up?
Follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. So I think on the website, it just two of the, they're coded by numbers. So it's like area, 8, 9, and 10, for example, I think is Pennacook. So those are the ones I'm watching for, of course. But I think just two of them are indicated on the website as completed at this time. Do you getting the sense that we're still on track to be able to complete the entire process at the projected date?
I asked them that quite a bit. They do assure us that we are on target. We do have a considerable amount of time. We although we're doing it values anew for April 1st of 2026, we do have to the second issue bill to finalize the assessment for those for that tax year. So we likely will continue inspections until, I'll say, June or July of next year. So I do believe, I've never known Vision not to complete their work on time. It's really not a choice for them because they're going to follow it up with the revaluation in 2026.
One more follow-up, if I may. Thank you. So if for the, as you said, you're anticipating in the next couple of weeks that the next designated area will be at work. For are you planning at all to post that anywhere or work with the Stephanie Breton to get some information out so that just folks might generally know, or post it somewhere so that, in other words, so if I'm interested in whenever Section 8 comes up, there might be at least a little bit of a forewarning for folks so that they could kind of be prepared, and I could kind of reach out to my constituents in advance and let them know. It looks like in another couple of weeks it's coming, or within a month you should be seeing people knock at your doors. Is there a way we could arrange that, or something you have planned on that score?
You're talking specifically about the inspections themselves, or?
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
I think that was the intention of the website. I don't think we're currently doing anything beyond that. I think if the city council wanted that, we're definitely listening and want to cooperate and get the information out as much as possible. I mean, we do have information, I know, on the monitors around City Hall, on the government channels and things of that nature. I don't know if specifically they're identifying neighborhoods. I think to get to that information, we're directing them to the assessing website.
Sorry, one more time. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess if I'm not asking for a ton of information, it's like a little. If there's a way to provide, if you can think of a way to provide like a little bit of a forewarning, so that we could let residents know that they could be expecting to have people come out in the next couple of weeks. It doesn't have to be precise, but even if it's just like in the next couple of weeks, you might start to see people in the neighborhood, and here they are. And that just also kind of we obviously want to encourage cooperation in this process. We want to have people to be able to not be concerned that because it's been a while now since we started the process, and so that's all I was thinking about.
And I will share that entry rates have been incredibly high in comparison to what Vision is typically used to. As an assessor who's worked in the profession for well over a decade, entry rates 10% are incredible, and we're seeing upwards of almost 50% here in Concord. And I just think that goes to attest to word being out early and for people to understand why we're out there doing what we're doing. So, but yes, we can work with Stephanie and certainly come up with some other ideas on how to get word out.
Great. I appreciate that very much. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Super, thank you. Councilor Brown.
Yes, thank you. I just have two questions for
Sure.
Mr. Rice. So you mentioned that there's staffing issues, and I had put out to my constituents that these are the 4 people that you're likely to see. Are those same 4 people Are they still on the job? Can we still expect? Because I want to let them know, hey, these are the folks you're likely to see at your door.
Yeah, so to be clear, our staff remains unchanged, but Vision staff itself, everybody who's out there is identified on our website, carries identification, has a marked vehicle, all the things we promise on our website to property owners. That being said, I will tell you that 3 of the current people out there doing the inspections started from the beginning. One is a new one who's been trained.
And it's on your website.
It is on the website.
Okay.
Always, our website and who's out there in the field is always current.
Okay.
If someone is added or drops, and we try to give background on that person as well, so people know what kind of qualification that individual has that's at their property.
Thank you. My second question is, after, assuming everything stays on track and all the assessments are done by June or July of 2026, I know you'll probably publish then your findings. When can people expect to see when's the earliest someone could expect to see what their new assessment is?
I would say likely maybe September, October of 2026.
Thank you.
Or remind people.
Or what?
We'll remind people.
Any other questions for John? Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, appreciate it.
To see you.
City manager?
So you'll next want to go to the Human Resources Department. That is starting on page 82. And as you can see, Human Resources, revenues budget to budget are down $1,200 or 3% due to the reduction of other revenues, meaning holiday favors program as a program elimination. There's also a reduction in expenses, so that's just an offsetting cost. Expenses budget to budget are up $95,000 or 11%, and that's a reflection of the annual wage and benefit increases that was approved by this council. Increases in professional development for training, so we put additional dollars here in training, which actually gets applied citywide, but you got to have some place to. Some of the dollars go here. Increases in professional services for online application systems, so we're trying to upgrade our application system for jobs so that it's easier for people to find employment here and make it more available to folks. Increases for premiums paid to family medical leave, as you know, we introduced that. Or increase that, and an increase in pre-employment physicals as an additional cost for that. And we increased HR certification of mailings for retirees. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Council Fennessy.
Thank you. I noticed the about $100,000, maybe $80,000 reduction in the professional services line. What was that associated with?
I believe that is the study work.
Yeah, that was the, which line are you talking about?
Professional
Services. Under the expense line?
Yeah. It's a one-time cost.
Sorry.
The 197 or the
Professional services went from 187 to 197?
From 277, we did it's a supplemental appropriation, right? That's why it's 80,000.
Give me a couple of minutes to look and see what that was.
Sure. Thank you. And my assumption is it was something for one-time money, but I couldn't remember what it would have been.
I just can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah. Any other questions? You want to move on and we can come
Sure.
back to that?
Brian can just let me know when. So the next one is the Finance Department. And
Mr. Manager?
Yes, sir.
It was for the class and comps.
Classic, the classic.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you. Welcome. So the, you'll want to be on page 85, and you can see under the Finance Department, revenues budget to budget are up 5% or $3.5 million. The main driver, of course, is if you do, is property tax, $2.7 million. Motor vehicle registration, $636,000 increase. Investment income down $76,000 because, of course, we've told you we're anticipating some sort of reduction in interest income due to Feds potentially decreasing rates over the next year. The use of fund balance is down $11,000, so that reduces revenue, obviously. And the room and meals tax up $158,000, and depending on what happens at the legislature, we'll know later on, but usually don't know until fall about that number. So on page 86, expenses, budget to budget are down $50,000 or 2%. The expense reduction is primarily due to changes in staffing, new staff coming in, reduced costs, even though overall wages are up for the increase because of what's been approved by council. We've had a number of changes in staffing. And I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding finance.
any questions for the city manager? Councilor Brown?
Thank you. Yes, I'm just looking on page 85, the revised, I know it was 2025, 4.2 million use of fund balance. What was that?
Those are all the approvals that the council made during the year for police department, for additional wages for police department, for plow drivers.
CDL?
That shows up as revenue?
Yeah, you ended up moving it here. Yeah. So you have to have some place to have it,
Okay,
right?
so it moves to,
Brian, do you remember what the rest of it? It was four. I think it was four major.
Yeah, if you recall, when these items are approved by the city council, we need to have a funding source. So the use of fund balance is the funding source for those items. We had, $2.9 million that we used at the surplus time that we transferred to reserves. We had the $400,000 for the police department, $400,000 for general services, $160,000 for the Concord stables. You just got a grant for that as well. And then we had another $40,000 for the DEI.
DEIJB costs. That's where.
This is the revenue. This is where the budgeted revenue comes in. Remember, we had that discussion. We don't actually book the actual number. We just do it as a budgetary number, so you don't see the actual revenue comes in. And then that wonderful circle of life of fund balance that we had in the budget.
flows through this.
It
through
goes,
that.
it does this. That's right, it does this. Right, Counselor? Just like that.
It's his idea. It's a-
Clear as mud.
That's what we asked.
Councilor Schultz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the same page, 85, and we brought this up a few times in the same context about federal funding and state funding. I mean, I feel very cynical about that myself, and we can't know until it happens, but should we have a conversation about what we do if something changes dramatically in some regard? I realize that's a big question.
We've had that conversation, and that's why the numbers that you see here are reflecting of that conversation, and which is why you have the undesignated fund balance that you have, is because in case of situations like that, you're able to respond to it in case of emergencies. So you have the resources to handle something like that if it occurs. Also, that's why I've asked you not to, and we've done this for years. This is a process the council's done for you. You do not appropriate dollars that have any type of outside matches until you have the cash in hand. The difficulty that we run into are things like the federal government several years ago went to, and the state has changed too in some ways, has gone to, instead of giving you the dollars and saying go to it, essentially say go to it and then we'll reimburse you. Well, unless there's a guarantee to have that reimbursement, I'm not, and I'll let you know as these things go on, I'm not going forward and say go do it. Don't order that piece of equipment, don't do that unless we know that those dollars are guaranteed. Unless you still want to do it, and knowing that there's a chance that you may not get the money back. But we've had all those conversations. This budget reflects the fact that at any moment the state may say, hey, we recognize a lot of the dollars that we give you come down from the federal government and we don't have them anymore, or something happens at the legislature and they change rooms and meals, they change highway block grants. In some cases, it's been good because there's been additional dollars there, and have said to communities, we have some additional highway dollars. Here it is. Here's your share of it, and you can do things. And you've taken those dollars in and done extra road work and whatnot. But we don't get out in front of ourselves unless we actually know we have the money.
Thank you.
But if we do learn of those, or you learn of those, let me know, and
Sure.
we'll let you know immediately. So,
Thank you.
Super. Other questions? Mr. City Manager, I have a question. This is a very small number, and I probably should know this answer. But on page 86, under expenses, allowance, 2,400 in the 2026 budget. What is that for?
that would be for, I think in those cases, it's probably cell phone reimbursement. Cell phone reimbursement.
Okay, good, thank you.
So instead of, what we try to do is encourage folks to use their own phones. We're not buying phones for everybody. Use your own phone, and then we'll give you a reimbursement based on that, based on your need for the phone and our need for you to have the phone, type of thing. So it works for the employee, but also saves us from buying phones and then changing them out every so many years. So it works out quite well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, please proceed.
So that is finance. The next one you want to go to is information technology. That's on page 89. And there's no revenue budgeted in IT, and it never really has been. Expenses budget are up $253,000 or 17%. Part of that is due to wage and benefit increases, but in reality, the large part is software and hardware maintenance costs that you can see going up in every organization. The main driver here is a $150,000 increase for our new email subscription. We're moving from an internal server-based system, so you're going to see less purchasing of hardware to a subscription-based system, and like all software applications these days. So it was just inevitable. We looked at doing this move last year, decided we could get a little bit more out of the equipment that we had, but this is the year to move before we have to make big investments in servers and whatnot. Be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just had a question about one IT item, which is the advanced malware protection and automated response that was a request for funding for $27,000, which we didn't include. So I guess my question generally, I think someone from this group asked this question every budget. Where are we at with our protections and so forth? I know that this would be kind of an extra item that is kind of considered a real higher standard of protection.
Right.
But could you speak just generally to how we're doing on that?
But the last year you made a whole series of changes. You hired a network security engineer. You added all kinds of protection systems in place, penetration exams, so to speak, for that. And this was just the next level, and it just gets to the point where there are other needs in the organization. It's not a bad request, but it's something where I didn't think it was necessary at this point to go forward. Hopefully there's somebody from IT who could answer specifically if you want, but it was just a matter of how far can you go so fast, and we did spend so much more money last year on IT security. I know this was Mayor Champlin's one of his and yours, one of you guys championed that. You guys, the city councilors championed that, and I added a significant amount of money last year to the IT budget. So,
Follow up.
Follow up.
Yeah. No, thank you, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of what are the next steps, or what are the plans going forward. Is this something that is the advanced malware protection something that we would be interested in pursuing in a future year?
Yes,
Could be even next year, or we might expect to see it potentially. Yeah.
potentially see what you do with this year's budget.
Right.
So,
No, I don't want to hold you anything. I know. Thank you.
But yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Horn.
It looks like you're projected in 2025, maybe 60,000 short of what was budgeted.
Mm-hmm.
Were you just were they running short perhaps an employee that they had wanted, or?
As far as what the dollars are?
Sorry, the full-time salary.
Yes, absolutely. So I can actually, let me have the IT director. He answered that specifically, but yes, that is the case because it is wages.
How about finance?
Oh, okay. Oh, actually, this is Brian has been overseeing IT for me, so.
This one is really, we had a staff vacancy, and so that's the reason why we just didn't have somebody in that position for a period of time. So it's not because of any other reason. I expect it to be back up there next year.
It is,
Follow up?
it is still vacant currently.
Pardon?
It is still vacant currently, that position.
No, we filled the position. Yep.
Perfect, thank you.
Fantasy.
Thank you. Do we have any, or do you have any plans in now or in the near future of investing in AI?
For a lot of our purposes, I've been hesitant because of the work that we do. There's probably some applications that would be appropriate for us, but a lot of the things that we do, I have some real concerns about how it gets applied, particularly in a governmental atmosphere. But I'm looking into it. So, but if you've got suggestions or can point me in directions, because I know you run across this in other places. If you see something good or bad, just send it my way. But I haven't seen anything that says right now this is appropriate for us.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other, Councilor Seku?
Thank you, Your Honor. On the benefits, where we look at adopted and projected or revised are the same on 192, but then budgeted this year is 219. Why the difference of the 27,000 almost?
It's a change on what is
Policy.
what people. Well, the policy is the same. We had a 0% increase. You
Okay.
recall, right? So, but it depends on what types of benefits people select, based on if you're single, if you're two-person, if you're family. So that's really what the reflection is. And then what we actually do, because this is position budgeting, and we take a look at each individual, we actually apply based on where we are at that moment, what we think those costs are going to be and what those selections are. So if somebody all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, has a child, all of a sudden come home and they're all of a sudden, there it is.
I'll talk to you
Somebody
later,
knocks
Josh.
at the door, and hey, I'm yours. All of a sudden they change their benefits, or somebody gets married, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever the case may be. So,
Or they adopt.
or they're dope. It's endless.
It's all right, any other questions? for the
Thank you.
City Manager? All right, thank you, Mr. City Manager. Please proceed.
Okay, next is city. We want to start on page 92. So if you scroll to,
These profligates.
yeah, this is trying to keep control here. This is expenses budget to budget are up $5,000 or 12%. Due to what you do is you set additional dollars every other year for council orientation and priority setting session. So after each election, which you'd have in November, there's an increase in advertising costs for the clerk's office, which administers for you, and there's also an increase in the legislative management system. So that's why you see that increase of $5,000.
Any questions for the City Manager?
I expect it to go down the following year.
Yeah.
So.
Mr. City Manager, I'm assuming, I do have a question. Under expenses on page 92, I'm assuming that under 2025 revised, that's a typo, 44,400?
44,000. Sorry. On
Oh,
page.
yes.
I'm sorry. On
I'm
page
sorry, on page 92,
92. Yep.
under expenses,
Mm-hmm.
professional development. Oh, is
Oh,
that,
that's
that's the DEI?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so that's.
We had to
that's
park
correct.
that somewhere. And
Gotcha, all right,
You got it.
that makes
So,
sense.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
So 4,000.
Okay,
All right.
so that next you'll want to go to page 110. So you got a little ways to go through all your goals. This is the city clerk's office, and revenues budget to budget are down $3,000 or 3%. That's due to a decrease in dog and marriage license revenues. Expenses budget to budget are down $18,000 or 3%. And while there's an increase in the part-time position approved during fiscal year '25, the decrease is due to a reduction of election workers, so your temporary employees, for the non-presidential election year, and the benefit changes for full-time employees. You'll notice that the rent is down $6,600 due to non-presidential election year, because you recognize the fact that we have to rent some places for the wards,
Like the barn at Bull Meadow, for
Bull
example.
Meadow or Bektash Temple or whatever the case may be. So that's why that is down. Again, the following year, that'll be back up, you'll want to rent. And it depends on how many elections you have each year, drives that number. I'd be glad to answer questions.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. I know that we had to make cut in terms of performing marriage ceremonies at City Hall due to staffing. Is there any options that we might have available to bring that back, or I'm not sure if that was because of the staffing situation at the time, or is this kind of like a permanent thing now that we don't envision being able to do that service any longer?
I think it's a permanent thing. It's just because of how small the staffing is in that office. It particularly, I think two things going on. One is the staffing within the office itself is very, very small in terms of the number of folks that they have for the amount of responsibilities that they have. So they just could not manage that when somebody comes in. Second part of this is, I think you'll notice if you're familiar with most cities that have a city council, many times the city council will actually have its own clerk. You'll have your own person who will manage you, so to speak, and provide services and support for you. Here, we double up and have the city clerk does that. So so you're saving a tremendous amount of money by doing this, but it's a tremendous amount of work for the city clerk's office. So that's why I think this is one of those things where it wasn't absolutely necessary that we do it, so.
For a second there, I thought you were going to say that city councilors could bear it.
I was going to say that.
That's an unexpected.
I still have a little bit of filter left.
It's close.
It's good. It's very
Councilor
good.
Todd, you all set?
Thank you.
Oh, is that what you were going to say?
I was about to say.
All right, well, great minds. Councilor Horn.
Can I just have a quick explanation of the sundry services and school district payments?
Oh, so that is the services that the clerk provides, particularly during the elections. So for the cost, so we, as you know, handle the school elections work. They handle the part of the work, but actually Janice does that, and we actually get some dollars back for that. There's always been a question about, is that number the right number? Really depending on how many elections they have, or if they have to have special elections, whatnot. But this is the number that's kind of agreed to on right now. If there's more that occurs, then you can see sometimes that we're not really sure what the numbers are going to be, but we budget pretty much the same dollar amount every single year. So.
And the
Follow-up?
sundry? The sundry?
There's a Concord School District. I'm sorry. What's that?
Oh, that and the school district are the same?
The school district. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said school district payment.
Oh,
You said sundry.
sundry,
So
sorry.
sundry is all the different little things that the other jobs that the clerk provides. So it could be everything from I think there's JP services or other different dollars that come in for things. It's gone down over the years. It's actually used to be considerably higher, like almost 50% higher. But it's really just small services, assorted and sundry services. That's why it's called sundry service. So all the little things kind of put together that are not, if it doesn't fall under licenses or recording fees, it falls under there, sundry services. We used to do laminating services, but we don't laminate anymore, I know. So things like that. So.
I know we were joking about justice of the peace, but I'm sure myself and another JP could get you a JP if the governor would sign it, and you could perform the marriage ceremonies, which is what past mayors have done.
Well, I don't know if
have to
anybody would
charge
want me
$5.
to. Charge $5? Well, in that case, I'll
$1.
definitely do it. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this area for the city manager? All right, please proceed.
Okay, next you'll want to go to general overhead. And that's on page 112. In budget to budget, revenues are down $189,000 or 4%, and this is due to several factors. Cable TV franchise revenue is down $22,000, and this is revenues directly related to the calculation of Concord TV funding, which I'll talk about more shortly. So anything that comes in from Comcast or from BreezeLine that's related to this comes in here for these dollars as revenue. But remember, as people get away from those services and go to online streaming and whatnot, the amount of customers goes down, the amount of money that they receive goes down, the portion that we receive goes down. So this has been a declining number for a while. You can see 873,024 projected. We're at 698, and we'll see where it goes. I expect it to continue to decline over time. So that's one reason it's down. Retiree health insurance reimbursements are down $109,000, but there's an offsetting decrease in the expense when we get to there. There's a $204,000 decrease in transfers from trust for grants for events funded by the city council is $150,000. So if you decide to put that in, we'll see that. There's a $55,000 reduction in the use of economic development reserve. I've been trying to reduce the amount of money that you take out of that reserve. And the other changes in transfers from enterprise and special revenue funds. So there's dollars that come in from all the different funds to help offset if there are costs, say, related to general overhead of the organization. You see dollars that get transferred. We try to push those down as much as we can, but there is some cost related to those costs. So that is the revenue. The expenses budget to budget are up $309,000 or 2%, and I'll list those for you briefly. $75,000, there's a $75,000 decrease in retiree health insurance. That's the offset to the revenue. Bond costs are up $20,000 due to anticipated bonding expenses. Electricity is down $243,000. That's due to the streetlight reduction of electricity costs and the elimination of on-bill financing for streetlights. So when we went to the LED system, I told you we'd save about $700,000 over 10 years. It'll probably be more than $1 million, actually, in terms of that. So that was a good move on your part. We also, special program costs are up $31,000 due to holiday celebration for Veterans Memorial Day. They asked for a $1,000 increase, so I have that in the budget. Concord Area Transit is up $10,000. They asked for $10,000. The Concord Coalition and Homeless asked for $20,000 to provide additional services, so I have that. I'm recommending that increase to $20,000, so that would go from like $40,000 to $60,000. There's an $589,000 increase in principal interest costs for previous capital projects you approved. $53,000 increase in transfer out for paving, so for your 2% of expenditures for paving program, $2.8 million paving program. Also note that even though the cable TV revenue is down $22,000, which I just mentioned, the payment to Concord TV is based on a formula. However, I've left that payment to them consistent at $335,000 so they can continue to do the good work that they do uninterrupted. And on page 113, provides for the supplemental information for special programs and social service agencies in more detail as I just described above. All other special programs and agencies are level funded for fiscal year 26. The next few pages provide descriptions for the general overhead budgeted items, and then this completes the general government section of the budget. Glad to answer any questions at this point.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. City Manager, returning to the transfer in revenues that are coming from the various divisions within the organization, why are there some departments not covered here, but they likely had overlap of services like IT and financial, et cetera?
Because those are departments. Those are departments in the general fund. So these, as you can note, these are all different funds where dollars are coming in from. So water and wastewater receive services that are provided by, say, finance. So there's costs associated with that, so we recapture some revenues associated with that. There are, in the TIFs, you look at the tax increment financing districts, there are services provided by general fund employees. So there are monies that come out of the tax increment financing districts to cover those costs. So instead of each tax increment financing district having its own accounting person, right, services are provided by our accounting folks. However, there's a cost associated with that. So the city council many years ago decided that to recapture some of those costs to save not only those funds dollars, but also keep the general fund more solid.
As a follow-up. Thank you. How does it work with the parking, doing a transfer in and then having a transfer out, and the trust having a transfer in and a transfer out? How does that work?
I'll have Brian come up and talk to it. So he'll do it more concisely than I'll.
So when you talk about the transfers in there for the services, like the manager said, for administrative services throughout the city, the transfer out, those are parking. Yeah, there was the general fund portion of some of the facility costs. When you look at, I think it was $35,000 overall, and then we had an additional amount in that. So for the School Street garage, and then the general fund was paying a portion of the debt service on the State Street garage. So we had a formula. We had formulas that were created years ago when these things were happening. There was a general fund portion of it for each one of those. So the general fund was paying for those specific pieces each year, and they were, I think, in some years they were declining, but over time they eventually go away. But so there's two. It's kind of like, you know, we'll pay you for doing these services, and then the general fund will pay you for doing these services.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Councilor Pratt.
Yes, I'd just like to follow up on that same page. I'm looking at the transfer in from wastewater. The projected in 2025 was $846,000, and in budgeting $990,000. So this is I'm assuming using a formula for services rendered. Why the increase, the almost $150,000 increase in wastewater?
So if you think about the formulas that we use to create these, we take the budgets of the different funds and then portions of the budgets in the general fund. We kind of add them all together to get 100%. We factor out the amount of dollars that are considered the administrative pieces, and then based on the size of the budgets in each one of the different funds, and including the general fund, then you have a proportion of that expense that would be applied to these transfers back to the general fund, or and you'll see some in general services too. And so when you see we've had increases in the water and wastewater funds over the years because of debt service and things like that. So there's a higher percentage that is applied to each one of those funds for those purposes.
Follow up, Your Honor? Yes, so, sorry, so is this covering the debt service, so like the wastewater GO bond?
Yeah.
Does this cover the debt service for that?
No, the debt service in the wastewater funds, or any of the funds, mostly covered by the funds themselves. The difference is, as you know, in the Gulf Fund, the general fund is picking up a portion of those debt service payments. But
I think I can help. So what we do is we take a look at actually the projects for the coming year that are going on, ones that are occurring now and ones that you'll potentially approve in the future. And then we look at the amount of city general fund time that will go into that. So if there's a lot of wastewater projects or a lot of water, which there are, a lot of water, then of course there's more time related to engineering and all the other groups, community development that work on that. So therefore the general fund, think of the general fund as obviously a separate fund, captures some of those dollars. Now, if you weren't doing a lot of capital projects that related to that, then you wouldn't be actually capturing those dollars.
Yes, I'd just like to clarify. So, so this is this 990,000 is expecting that they're going to rely on more services because of the capital projects. Okay, thank you.
That's part of it. That's a big part of it.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Councilor Horn.
So you change the formulas yearly depending on the projects?
Just, if I really not the formula, it's more of the amount that is calculated based on the amount of time that goes into it for the departments is changed. So if you let's say you're doing a very small amount of projects or a very small project, then that number would go down. If you're doing a lot of projects, which, as you know, we've got the entire project over on the Heights for wastewater project, it goes up.
Follow.
Yeah.
Right, so you do project that out yearly, the amount of projects. So it's
Changes.
going to change
Changes year to
between
year.
these different, okay.
Councilor Kretovic?
Thank you. Moving over to the social service agencies. I know we discussed the other day, the Coalition to End Homelessness is seeking another $20,000, which is for expanded winter shelter services over the winter. For the McKenna House, the Friends Program, how do we know that we're getting a good return of investment for what we're putting in on an annual basis to see that Concord residents are the ones that are being served by these agencies as opposed to on the county level or someone that is placed there through the state? I know that there are state regulations that we need to follow, that when the need is here, if someone is in our town, we need to take care of them. But at the same time, we know there are 8 communities in Merrimack County that have added zero housing units to affordable housing. How are we assured that those communities are supporting their residents in a good, meaningful way and not just relying on the city of Concord and the Concord taxpayer dollars to fund these agencies? I'm not saying that these agencies shouldn't be funded. How are we assuring we are taking care of our people?
Probably best answered by Karen if she's here, but my other Karen.
Oh, other Karen.
Your other Karen.
So, but if she's not, I will try to do it, but let me.
Great question.
So what our concern, Karen Emmis Williams, our human services welfare director, we've shared the same concern. And one of the things that we've done is gone and talked to these agencies. Talked to these agencies and expressed that same concern. And the approach that we're taking is that what we'd like to do is make sure we have a relationship with them where if they have space available, there's 2 approaches. If you have space available that we're knowledgeable, you make us knowledgeable on if not a daily basis, on close to a daily basis, of what's there so that we can access that. At the same time, we've also had a conversation that is there a way for us to enter into an agreement, a written agreement with these agencies to actually hold space for us? And if we don't need it, then fine, we don't need it, and make it available to somebody else. But in exchange for these dollars, so there's a return on investment here, that they make the space available to our folks. The difficulty that we're running into, and they do have issues, is that it used to be, primarily the homeless folks that you're seeing are the people who are looking for these services were middle-aged men, and I'm just going to make some generalizations here, who are looking for these services. Now what we see, they turn into, remember several years ago, turned into a lot younger folks who are coming looking for services. Now it's the frail and elderly. And it's people with tremendous medical needs. And they're where they really should be in a hospital is where they should be. And they have difficulty accessing bunks, the second tier of a bunk. They have difficulty getting from one place to another, and that's what we're running into. So when we talk to these agencies, they do have room, but generally the types of space that they have available it's very difficult for us to find a match to what the people who are coming to us with. So that's what we're trying to see if we can set up agreements with these folks. And what I had planned to do is, if you approve these dollars, is actually have a written agreement with these agencies that says you're going to provide space to us that we can count on. Otherwise, there won't be dollars made available to you. But I think we can. Everybody that we've talked to wants to work with us and wants to cooperate on this. It's just that they actually, legitimately have people at their door who need certain types of space with accommodations, and they're making them available, and we don't, and they don't want to make sure we have, they're holding space in somebody who wants to use it, and it's going vacant for the night. We want to make sure every element is being used, so.
Can I
that's
ask a
all.
follow-up on that? Are you talking about a system that is perhaps prorated, that we are
Yes.
prorating the dollars, so it's not just, I'm going to hand over this money, and this is not relevant to all the agencies that are on this list, but
Right,
if it's
right.
a prorated because we don't have a need or you don't have the space, then we aren't going to fund 100%.
Right, and the idea, and right now, we provide those resources quarterly. Right? So if we're not providing them to the agency, then what I would do is I'd have, again, this is all up to you if you want to go along with this thought, that Karen Emmis Williams would actually, then those dollars would essentially be available to her to be able to use to place people in other places that actually cost us dollars. So if she has to place them in a hotel or someplace else, that will be able to accept them, the person gets housed, but the money doesn't go to an agency who just can't happen, for whatever reasons, all legitimate, I'm sure, can't house our folks, or people who come to us. So I think it's a very positive economical way to manage the taxpayers' dollars and also provide services to folks who genuinely need them.
Thank you.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. Manager. I think that we are spending a really exorbitant amount of money on hoteling.
Yes.
And so I am wondering if you have considered whether or not the dollars that we're spending in that area could be used instead to either contract with an agency who can assist us in getting the medically frail who are primarily using hoteling the sort of medical assistance they need and advocating for them, or contracting with another agency, or thinking about having an alternate shelter space that could accommodate those folks. So that's my first question. The second follow-up, thank you, would be if we were to adopt the current plan that you have in place, would your idea be to take a look next year during budget time and assess sort of how things have worked with this new process, and then make the determination about whether or not we need to look at a different model altogether?
Yes, because I would like to give the agencies the opportunity to work with us, and by all indications, they wish to, and see if the services match. What they have available actually matches up with our needs. If it doesn't, then that's understandable, but we actually have needs too. So we're not just going to be doling out dollars to agencies who provide great services, but somebody else can do that. We have certain folks that we need to be able to take care of, and that's our first priority.
Thank you.
Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. This is kind of a follow-up on Councilor Sexton's question. Have we been able to identify, or have we looked for any agency that is starting to focus on this issue of sort of senior, medically frail individuals?
I'm not aware of one, but that's why I'd really like to leave it up to working with Karen, who actually does this for a living, and can figure this out. And if she can find a way to make that work, I think everybody's looking for the same thing right now, and it's just the costs associated with that. It's really almost hospital type of services. It's having someone available to be able to provide almost like an in-house nurse type of thing, and a lot of organizations just don't have that. They can't afford it. And my concern is, what I see is the way what's going on with the state and what's going on with the federal government in terms of resources. It's just going to get worse. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it's necessary to do something with this.
Follow-up?
Follow-up.
Thank you. Has the county engaged at all on this issue? I mean, it seems to me that as the county runs the nursing home, these sorts of individuals would be, even if they're not necessarily at the medical acuity level required to get into the nursing home, it seems like the county would be in a position to assist in sort of developing an alternative arrangement for that population.
Well,
probably
like she,
better
I
than-
know she wants to help me out, but the answer, I think the answer is yes, but go ahead.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. City Manager.
All right, you're jumping over Counselor Horn, but go ahead.
Well, I was
because
just
it's
going to say,
relevant.
as one of your 13 state reps were on the county delegation, and the state, or the county nursing home has had a waiting list and struggles, just like every other aspect of healthcare, with having enough people to serve in the jobs that you need to take care of folks. I mean, the cheapest, most affordable way for anyone to have care in these sorts of situations would be home care aides, if they have a place to stay. And it's, I mean, I will just say, because this is actually going to be a part of the conversation or the question that I had too, is right now, when someone needs an emergent need for longer term care, we contract or refer people as far away as Plymouth. I know someone who actually is considering moving to Michigan. I mean, it's very complicated. It's come at it from multiple angles. And then to get to what I was going to ask is, I'm still interested in hearing a briefing from our city welfare person, as well as the embedded folks with the social work, with the police department, which I'm sure we're about to talk about how that is, and from their point of view, what that need is. But, you know, whether it's Brady Sullivan coming in and, you know, doing renovations and making a building more expensive, to just the amount that people are willing to spend on healthcare in general right now, it's complicated. And it's going to get more complicated as we move forward. But in terms of the county, there's still a challenge there with not having enough beds and not enough workers.
I can, do you want me to respond to it before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Karen wanted to be here tonight, but she has issues, she couldn't be here tonight. So she wanted to come and give you some information, because I think there was some recent information out in the media that was incorrect.
Yep.
I'll just call it incorrect. And she wanted to kind of set the record straight about how it really works. So I will have her come at a future meeting when I can get her physically here to do that, to answer exactly what you're asking, Counselor.
Counselor Horn.
Two-part question. CAP obviously facilitates federal, state programs, anything from weatherization to Meals on Wheels, whatnot. So two parts. And there are 2 county programs, obviously lots of towns that they administer for. When we give them our $17,000, is that earmarked for a particular program? And with them, would you have the opportunity to ask them that it's earmarked for Concord folks?
I guess we would have the opportunity to ask if it's earmarked for Concord folks, but there's no particular program that I'm aware. I think it's the whole gambit of things, services they provide. What we do that's targeted is the Concord area, which they work with. You know, the CAP works with the Concord area transit, but the $17,000 is, even though it seems like a lot of money, it doesn't go far in this situation. But yeah, we don't have anything specifically that I would say was only for Concord folks like that. So I'm sure they'll be able to say we spend much more than that on Concord folks, but it's not solely just for that. So.
Councilor Schlosser.
So could you, thank you for this presentation, could you help explain what Granite V&A proposed, what services they were proposing that we fund for them, that funding request was rejected?
The idea was that to cover, because they provide services to many, because they're in Concord, provide many services to Concord residents, that they believe that they should be compensated for that. I don't disagree, but remember, they're a tax-exempt organization who took a prime piece of not them, the building was a prime piece of real estate in the south end that got developed and then was taken off the tax rolls, which is I'm still not happy with. But it's reality. And so I think the city of Concord, the taxpayers, make a tremendous contribution through that tax-exempt property today. So.
Thank you. Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you again, Mr. Manager. I am wondering if you know, or if I should just wait and to ask Karen when she presents, whether or not we are tracking the people who are coming into our Human Services Department that are directly leaving some sort of a state facility, be it the, actually could be nursing home, it could be on the county level, or state prison, women's prison, state hospital. I'm just wondering if we're tracking
No,
that.
that's a good, I don't know whether or not she has that type of level of detail. She probably has access to that information, giving, when people come in for assistance, you ask them for history, resources and whatnot, but I couldn't tell you whether or not, that, and then could you boil that down and say, here's this many from Department of Corrections, here's this many from the nursing home, here's this many, I couldn't tell you.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
One quick follow-up?
Yes, follow-up.
And I am wondering if Karen is coming for a presentation, if she could also bring any data associated with how many referrals are being met per agency that we are that are funded in your proposal before us.
Be glad
That'd
to.
be great.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
And I have to tell you, the Public Safety Advisory Committee has been working closely with Karen on this. And I can tell you that I don't know that number, but that number has increased because I think the agencies really do listen to what the needs are, and I think they are trying to do the best they can. They just don't have the resources to meet the needs of everything. And I think, the difficulty is underneath the state law. I'm not blaming Councilor Schultz. Under the state law, anybody who kind of comes into the city all of a sudden is in reality a city resident and is due services, whether or not they got on a bus from someplace else or visiting from West Virginia or whatever the case may be. And we do our best to take care of those folks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. City Manager?
Okay, so next we'll go to public safety. So you'll want to go to the other agenda item, that's agenda item number 5 for Police Department.
Councilor Brown, do you wish to recuse yourself from this section, or do you want to sit in?
I'm just going to sit here.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to be on page 120 for police. And revenues, budget to budget, are down $137,000, or 22%, and that's due to decreases in special duty services in school district payments for the reduction of the school resource officer at the Merrimack Valley School District. So obviously, if you don't have the officers to do the special duty work, you have the revenues that come in for that special duty work, and the school resource officer was reduced at the Merrimack Valley School District. On page 121, expenses budget to budget are up $1.4 million, or 9%. That's due to wage and benefit changes of $1.2 million, which includes a reduction of $300,000 for the attrition and an addition of a third social worker outreach position. As you know, in my presentation, I recommended the addition of 2 positions, one in fire, one in police. This is the one in police. Also included the budget are increases for funding for a recruitment video to enhance our recruitment process. Motorcycle units improvements, that's helmets, essentially, time to replace the motorcycle helmets. Bike registration program, part of our community policing work. Additional education and training funding, because we have so many new officers, young officers coming in, so we wanted to enhance our training. First responder wellness consultation program, that's dealing with the mental health issues related to public safety, our public safety officers, and a Power Ready training software for $10,000, and that's part of our, again, a lot of training work and personnel work associated with efficiency improvements regarding our power system. This budget continues the emphasis on public safety and support resources for working with the city's most vulnerable populations. Training, continued support for non-lethal options when dealing with offenders, and police officer wellness and support for traumatic situations. I'd be glad to answer any questions regarding the police department.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Kretovic, then Councilor Horn.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, do you foresee any kind of tipping point coming within our community when we look at the call volumes being projected at 50,100 for 2026? understanding that if we take 365 days and 24 hours a day, we are now responding to something of roughly every 10 minutes.
So if we get to the point where we determine that we're not going to be able to, or anybody or other departments are not going to be able to hire additional staffing, then yes, I could see us changing our protocol of what we respond to and what we don't. I believe that based on the increase, if you've staffed it sufficiently, that we should be able to have the services that we want to have for the community, and it's just a matter of staffing up and getting people interested to be police officers and do this work. And which is why I'm adding the social worker position, because I believe that will make the existing offices more efficient, give them additional resources, and also deal with the needs that we most have in the community right now. So, I believe I can fill that position.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Horn.
I think it was last year we talked about this, and it's sort of what Councilor Schultz said, but are we able to get a more often feedback from the social worker on the types of calls that they are answering to, just so we're more aware of what they're handling?
Yes, we had them, didn't we have the social worker position? Didn't,
I think it was a while ago.
It was like a year ago or so.
a year? Was it? Okay. Yeah, I can have them come in whenever you'd like them to come in and do a presentation if you like. It just felt like a few months ago.
It feels like yesterday, but I think it was a while ago.
We do get those updates at the Public Safety Advisory Board regularly, and you may see them in the minutes as well, but it would
I can do it.
very informative, yeah.
It might be worthwhile to have
Yeah.
Ms. S. Williams and also our police social workers come in and just do an overview of
We'll set something up and do a presentation, and that way the community can see it too, because it'll be televised.
I think it'd be important.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilor Horn, follow up?
Different question.
That's all right, different question.
What is the
They
rent-
often are.
What is the rent line in the police budget for expense?
I believe that's one of our towers, if I remember correctly. I got it right. So yes, it's one of our Plaza. Okay, you joined, yeah. So those our communication towers. We rent space to put the equipment on, so we can get the signal out to everybody.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. In the budget, we've got reduced amounts for overtime. And obviously, this year, we've significantly exceeded the budget overtime. Is the expectation that between the full-time and part-time amounts that we're budgeting, that we'll be able to make up for any overtime that we may have to pay for positions that are not filled?
That's exactly correct. So if you look at the bottom line for the revised budget, actually, whether it's the adopted or the revised, and then what the projected expenses are for 25, it's considerably below. And you can actually see, if you look at the full-time number and the part-time number for 25 projected, they're significantly below what was budgeted. So that's where you're achieving your savings, but then it pays for the overtime. So.
Councilor Schultz.
Actually, I'm sorry. Actually, if you look at the Beneflix cost, you can see the Beneflix is significantly down because you don't have the employee to then pay the benefits to and their dependents.
Councilor Schultz.
Thank you. Since we're talking about it, this might be a weird question, but I notice at times our officers are having conversations with citizens right in the circle out here. I was asked by a constituent why that happens from time to time. I assumed it's because of issues around space.
That's exactly correct, and I think it's a good customer service because we actually come to the citizen because they're out there. Usually it's at their car because I see the same thing outside, but it really has to do with space. We do not physically have the space safely within the existing police department to be able to accommodate folks into a community room and have that type of discussion without dragging somebody through the department and exposing them to the problems associated with that. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Quick question, Mr. City Manager, and this is just another one of those small budget items, but it sparked a question in me. On page 121, under expenses, under building supplies, there's a $4,000 increase this year over last year's budget. Just wondering
what that
Yeah, what that is.
0.1%
That's
of
a
the
lot of
budget
Mr.
means?
Sounds like a lot of Mr.
Let me ask, what's Brian, you happen? Oh, okay, Brian's got it.
So in the manager's discussion, he talked about a couple of items that were added as part of his ad for program change requests. And one of them was for the motorcycle unit improvements, that was a couple $1,000. And then the bicycle registration program, again, a couple $1,000.
And that's under building supplies?
That was under building supplies, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We put things in strange places.
So people would ask questions.
That's right, we want to make sure you ask.
Just want to make sure I ask the important questions, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Any other questions for Mr. Espel on police? All right, please.
Okay. So next, you'll want to go to the fire department. That's item number 6, so you have to close this item. Open up the next one. Item 6, fire department. You want to be on page 127. And revenues budget to budget are up $196,000 or 4%. That's mainly due to an increase in ambulance charges of $385,000. You'll notice a decrease in other revenue, which is due to the Southern New Hampshire hazmat. What last year was over budgeted in the amount of $90,000, so this year's budget at $93,000. This is reimbursement for fire department for overtime expenses for hazmat events, which we respond to. On the next page, you will see the budget. The budget are up $912,000 or 5%. This main increase is due to wages and benefits in the amount of $811,000. This includes the addition of an assistant fire marshal position for half a year, and then of course it would be full time. It'd be all next year if you approve it. An additional $496,000 increase in overtime. The fire department budget does not include cost of living increases for the IAFF collective bargaining agreement, because that would be someplace else in your budget. And the successor agreement has not been reached. The collective bargaining agreement expires on June 30, 2025. Also funded in this budget are an increase in paramedic tuition and backfill for $23,000, a technical rescue trailer for $15,000, uniform washing machines for $16,000, training and backfill for recruitment, $47,000, Swiftwater training, $32,000, and Concord Hospital recertification increase. This is an increase they told us we need to pay, $1,200. City continues to support the work of our emergency service professionals. Added emphasis this year on overtime and training, and be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for the city manager? Councilor Horn and then Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you. Why would there be maybe 40% decrease in fire prevention permits?
Because we don't have the people to go out there and do all the inspections. We do the absolute inspections that are necessary, but all the other ones that we could be doing a call, we don't have those folks. So therefore, that's why I added that position that's being requested. So there'll be an offsetting revenue. I did not anticipate really that additional revenue that would come from that, but there'll be an offsetting revenue related to that expense.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. City Manager, our fire department, almost the same question as our police department with the increase of call volumes that we see year over year. And now we're up to 10,900 projected for 2026. For many years, we've been talking about Station 1, and of course, we always see it put in the requests from the fire department. There comes a time where we need to look as a community, and I want to share my appreciation that we are going to look at the potential for another fire station, and where that would probably, we're moving in the direction in our community that we need to have that. The Pennacook station already operates with less apparatus than the others, though that doesn't mean they are less in call volumes. That there has to be a tipping point in our community when we are seeing over 29 calls per day from our fire department that is traveling all within the city, plus providing mutual aid, plus the number of ambulance calls that are done on a day-to-day basis. Where do you see this going in the future on our fire department, and of course, combined with the phenomenal pressure that they have with, again, lack of staffing and overtime, how do we expand and support this department to a level that is appropriate for our community at this point in time and also in the future years?
Okay.
I know it was big. It was a big
Okay,
request there.
so I'll start.
Is that a question?
Yes, it was.
Fix it. Take you back a little bit. So one of the things that you were very concerned about was making sure that our fire training, our staffing was properly trained, and you had the best trained staff in the state of New Hampshire, which you do. And so you went and actually, even though we have the state fire training facility is in Concord, you built your own. And you spent a lot of money building your own and staffing and putting that together and making that available to any time when we're available, when staff's available to do that. Now the problem is they're out on so many calls that it's very difficult for them to make themselves available to do that training. But you also, so that was part of it, was make sure you have the training facility. Other part is make sure that they're well paid, and they're well paid, and you actually just did that for the fire officers. You're going to be looking at that for the firefighters. For that, you want to make sure that they have the best equipment in the state. They have the best equipment in the state. You make sure there's a 1.7 or how many millions of dollars we're doing for the new engine this year. You just ordered a new ladder last year for $1.8 million. So they have the equipment, they have the training, they have the staffing levels are there. The concern is that, and also you just added an ambulance company just very recently for that, because that was the major calls were related to ambulance calls. So you have been doing all these things, but where it leads to is because of all the growth that has gone on in this community, particularly related to housing, you're going to have to increase that, the number of staffing that are available to that. The problem is, I think when you deal particularly with fire, it's not like you can add, like with police, with 2 officers here and a social worker there and be able to supplement that. You actually have to add engine companies, and if you want to do staffing on that for 24 hours, that's 12 people. We've also asked for additional 4th person on each engine. You're talking millions upon millions of dollars, not including new stations. So you're just going to have to, you're going to have to look at it from the standpoint of when's the time to actually make that investment in either a new station, I shouldn't say new station, an additional station or an additional engine and the equipment that goes along with that. And I think it's just a matter of prioritizing what you have. It's coming. And I think in the next several years, the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to see the housing growth that Concord has been responsible for making happen, and you're going to have to respond to that with the additional services providing equipment and staffing for the fire department. But right now, given the economy, given where I think this economy in the nation is going and the downgrading that the U.S. government just got in its bond rating, which we just talked about the other week, and who knows what's going to happen with other communities in the state itself, I think adding the position that I added in the fire department, I think is the appropriate step at this point, and putting in dollars for the equipment, and putting in dollars for the training, and putting in dollars for the looking at central station and headquarters. I think that's the appropriate step for this year.
Thank you.
Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. Somewhat of a follow-up to Councilor Kretovik's question. And you mentioned the central station, which,
yes,
which of course. How are you looking at the fire department generally in the future in terms of the buildings? That was one of the things you touched on in terms of central station, but the other aspect, which I think we recognize even in terms of the police department, we were sort of talking about. We just mentioned the issue of a problem where you've got folks need to meet outside because the facilities are inadequate, and also just as a recruitment tool to be able to have a really modern facility. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking is something that we do need to pay attention to in the fire department as well. So beyond Central Station, I'm thinking about Manor Station, which is now 50 years old, give or take a couple of years.
We're all 50 to 60 years old, yeah.
Yeah, right. And I did notice that you didn't, we have a Manor Station repairs and maintenance increase. It was a small amount, $1,300, but you didn't fund that. But I'm just saying, so what kind of like, what is your overall scope or view of what the future would look like for the city in terms of actual stations and the priorities?
Okay, so as far as that amount there, I figured an $18.8 million budget, you could find $1,300 if you wanted to, right? I think we're looking at a situation, particularly on the heights. If you think about the redevelopment of the Steeplegate Mall area, all the projects that could happen out on 106, the station out on, just one example, the station out on Loudon Road is not going to be able to manage and provide service. You have one station on that side of the river. So when we looked at the study, you really need two. Do you really need one in the Manchester Street area, the Airport Road area, and you need one on the Loudon Road area handling East Concord and the growth that's occurred there. So I think there's going to have to be a study to look at acquiring property and then building a new station out there and going from one station to two stations on the east side, and then retrofitting or replacing the existing stations that we have here, because they're just not going to handle the equipment. They're not going to be able to hold, which you already did at Central Station, to be able to actually get some of the equipment in there. They're not going to be able to hold the equipment that we're going to want. We don't have enough room for all the equipment we have now, and the stations are not the appropriate size to handle the size of the actual pieces of equipment. So you're going to have to do it in a manageable way. Otherwise, you're not going to be able. There'll be nobody living here. You just want to be able to pay the taxes to be able to do that. And I think we can. But if you notice, there are no federal funds generally, unless you could get some. Maybe somebody who wants to run for federal office could get us an earmark of some sort to do something. But it's really all on the taxpayers to do that. So the way I would prioritize it. You want to make sure you have well-paid people because you want to attract the best. You want to make sure that they're trained. You want to make sure that they have the equipment, the best equipment that they can have. You've done those things, and you're still working on those things. And the stations are unfortunately but you can only go so far with that before they get too old, or you don't have enough of them based on the growth that's going on in the community. But I think you have focused on the right things, but there's going to be more to do over the next 5 years.
Follow-up?
Thank you. Yes, just one follow-up then. You mentioned the study, which I think is a compelling idea. What would you envision in terms of the timing of doing something like that, if that was something we were interested in doing, having a study so that we could do it? It's kind of a citywide assessment.
Well, you've done a citywide assessment in terms of where the response times are and where the growth is going. I think what's happened is the growth rate is actually increasing much quicker than people thought it would. And I think it's because you went from a very nice place to live to one of the best places to live in the entire country. And I think there's more and more people, and I think that was sped up by COVID. So you have a great place to live, you have the best water in the state, if not the country, and we're going to try to keep it that way. You have all this open space. People want to be in Concord, and I think that is just going to continue the growth rates that are occurring, that are going to continue to occur, and you're going to have to respond by providing the services for that. Some of that will be supported by the new growth that occurs, but other ones will be increases in taxes. If people want those, and I think people do want, particularly the ambulance service and the fire service, people do want those services. So I think you've already started on that path, and that's why I put the money in here for the central station for this coming year. And I think every year going out into the future, or at least every other year, you're going to have to put additional dollars into making some of these things actually happen. So,
thank you.
Councilor Kurtz.
I think Councilor Keach was waiting.
Oh, I'm sorry. After you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Manager. If I'm reading the call volumes correctly, we call them our fire department, and they're under a line item for fire, and we're certainly grateful for those services. But 70% of their response calls are EMS calls. Am I looking at the numbers correctly? Ballpark there.
Right. I'd say it's actually probably higher.
Okay.
But just looking straight at the numbers, yes.
Right. May I follow up to that? Okay. And it's not true in every municipality that a fire department also serves as the emergency services. Some municipalities in Concord contract out for their.
Right. Manchester and Nashua are good examples. Yeah.
Could you, for the sake of council's understanding and also the general public, talk about the benefit to the residents of Concord by having our fire department serve as our emergency services? It's such a huge portion of what they do, and it's not standard operating across the state. So for folks who may not have lived in Concord long, I'd like to have an understanding of why that's a benefit to residents, as I assume it is.
So in my mind, and I've looked at both, because I've looked at whether or not we need to go to a different type of service over the years. I truly believe that the folks that we have, the people that we attract, and the training that we give them actually produces a better quality in terms of their skill set. Individual, when they respond to you for an emergency, we're better qualified to handle that emergency. And I think what happens is, in Concord, the reason these numbers are particularly so big is because the population doubles during the day. That's not the case, and that's true of a lot of cities, but that's not true of most towns. And if you think about it, most towns around us are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. They don't really have the ability to send a lot of equipment our way because they don't have a lot of equipment. And I think their situations are going to get more perilous as time goes on. They're not going to be able to track staff. They're not going to be able to train staff. They're not going to be able to pay staff. They're not going to be able to afford the equipment. And there's more going to fall on us as a loan to handle ourselves, which is why we need to continue to make the investment. But I believe the quality of because you continue to invest in them, the quality of the folks that we have responding to emergencies are top-notch, and they provide top-notch services. And I think I don't get complaints. I don't know if you do. I don't get complaints about people showing up and not handling something properly, or any issues with service delivery from the fire department or the police department, because we invest in them. So it's worth the investment.
Thank you. Follow-up. You intimated this, but you have done cost-benefit analysis of our model versus, say, having strictly a fire department and hiring some sort of third party to provide our EMS services?
I've done it over the years. I've taken a look at it because I've seen the other models, particularly Manchester and Nashua, and I'm not convinced in any way by having an outside services company or separate service doing that, and having a fire department that responds to fires. Look at the, I know you have, look at the number, because that's where your first question was. Look at the number of fires that we have. Right. That's partially related to the increases in fire prevention work that we've done over the years, better building structures, the way things are done, and also we also have a lot of fire flow with a good water system again, providing with the hydrants and the sprinkler systems. But if you think about having a full fire department with all the fire stations, all that equipment responding to the number of fires that we have, it doesn't make sense, right? So it makes sense to have these folks doing double skill set to be able to do this, and I think it leads to a better product for the community.
Thank you very much.
Well, Councilor, you've just warmed the cockles of Councilor Keach's heart.
Thank you.
Yes.
So that brings me to mutual aid.
How did I know?
But I'm not going to go there. But I do think we serve a service to the greater community that that costs us a lot of money that I'm not sure they understand. But my question is, I'm all about boots on the ground, and I'm glad that we are going to hire more firefighters, more police officers. I mean, those are the ones that make the difference. And they're expensive. They're really expensive. And as you pointed out, we hire good people, and you get what you pay for. So going forward, I'm just curious, the void of attracting good candidates, like how do you fix that? What do you do? Because that's a problem.
Right. I think that you got to approach it from several different avenues, and part of it is you got to grow your own people, right? You got to find good people and actually invest in them, and that's you can see based on this with the increase in paramedic tuition and backfill dollars. I mean that's what that program is about. Also, you have training and backfill for recruitment. So when people come in, you actually have the folks who can actually mentor them. And I mean, I could have put a lot more dollars in here for mentorship programs at all different levels to make sure we have the proper succession planning. But when you get to the point where your budget's up, hundreds of thousands of dollars each and every year, somewhere along the line, you got to say this is all we can do right now. I think you got to invest in the folks without decreasing your standards. I've seen other departments around the state decrease their standards and who they'll accept. I go to other communities, I see people that we rejected who work in those other communities, and it comes back to bite them.
It's a hot mess.
Hot mess. And you don't see that here. You don't see that. I mean, we have our issues. We have folks that we have to deal with. I have plenty of personnel issues that go on all the time. It's just human nature, but not like what you see in other communities. You don't see the issues that you see in other cities in New Hampshire and Concord, and that's because we will not relax our standards for the quality of people that we hire. So, but I think you got to invest in your own people, and I think one of the advantages we have is that we do a lot of different things. The Swiftwater training is a good example. People don't want to be doing the same thing day after day after day. They want to have different skill sets, different experiences, and by doing that, we can actually have a good team, and we have plenty of rivers in the city to be able to respond to, but it's a skill set that you actually develop, and some pride that you have in your performance and what you can provide to the community. And I think investing in those really does something for the community, but also does something for the employee in terms of their experience on their job.
Thank
you. Councilor Schultz.
Thank you. I was shocked to learn that there's such a high volume of calls that we respond to at the men and women state prison.
Yes.
I assume we bill a variety of folks for any of our services like that. Do we bill the state for that? Because if we don't, can we?
Yes.
I believe we do. I have to.
Where's Joe?
Can you can relay to me if you want.
We bill the patient that we transport, so a lot of times we're getting basically Medicaid rates back on those when we transport or go out. We only bill if we do transport a person to hospital. We do not have the ability to actually bill the state.
Could you repeat that, Mr. City
We
Manager,
do
in case-
not actually bill the state. We bill the people that we actually transport. And generally, of course, they're covered by certain insurance programs or not, and we receive that amount of dollars. So by having the prisons here, does that cost us the taxpayer money? Absolutely, it does, in men's and women's. So.
Follow-up?
As a follow-up, could we bill for those that have some sort of an accounting process, even an FYI letter of some sort, when we don't bill? So if we're called to assess, is there something we can do to account for that? I mean, I feel like the state should be paying more, not just in this part of the budget, but probably in a number of ways.
I'll take a motion.
And obviously, we benefit from having the state capital be our city. I mean, it's great.
So
but
I'll give you an example.
this is expensive.
I can't remember how many years ago this was. Seems like a few, but it's probably many. The fire chief and I went over, testified in front of the legislature, and explained that really they should be providing us with a sum of, this has got to be 15 years ago, about $2 million back then, annually on this, and they're still laughing. I can still hear because they say, we're not going to pay you because we're not going to pay any place else that has state agencies, federal agencies, county agencies. They're not going to pay them any money. So so we actually did that analysis. It's not worth the value of doing it because they don't, unless you were curious about it. I mean, we can figure out, but it's just going to be a cost. There's no revenue associated with it. They're not going to entertain that.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I believe that we do receive about $150,000 from the state for fire. More than that, around there?
125.
125.
125. But I guess my question would be, is the fire department tracking the amount of responses to our state facilities?
We are starting to. We have the prison. We're going through a study right now to track all of the state properties so we can compile that information.
Follow-up.
I think it would be really helpful to see, especially during the next budget cycle, what that looks like, so we can have a full accounting of just how much we are expending. And in addition to the previous question I had about the Human Services Department, I think we're spending a considerable amount of money on state services.
I see another hand. Councilor Foot.
Thank you, Your Honor. Going back to capital projects and the stresses we hear about growth, I guess at what point do we lift the suspension and expand upon our impact fees that all of this growth is causing? I'm looking at Laconia. They have impact fees for public schools, police, fire, recreation, roads, library. For a single-family house detached, the total's about $7,000 on that. I look at Lebanon, again, they do it based on square foot for schools, recreation, police, fire. I look at Rochester, also has it for schools, police, fire, municipal offices. I can go down the list here, but Salem, same 4 categories. And you know, we're having these conversations and we're worried about, you know, what we're going to do with the next fire truck and, you know, the buildings that the police and fire are in. But at some point, those who want to come here and be part of this community and build, we need them to contribute. So I really find it necessary, sooner rather than later, that we implement measures so those folks who do come to this community participate in this. And I'm asking, at what point do you think that, you know, we can't say no to impact fees anymore?
You actually have impact fees, and you have gone through iterations on what you do with impact fees. Over the last decade, I would say, the City Council has moved away from impact fees to try to encourage more growth in the community, particularly commercial growth associated with that. So you've done that. But then at the same time, a few things have happened outside your ability to manage. So, for example, you cannot charge school impact fees because the school districts have reduced the capacities that they have. So when the school district went from 5 schools, elementary schools, to 3 elementary schools, and when I don't know what's going to happen with Runlet or whenever that happens, but you can only for increasing capacity. You can so, for example, you used to collect, and stop me if I go on a little history here, but you used to collect impact fees for the Concord School District for the addition to the high school. Well, when that bond went out after 30 years, I think it was a 30-year bond, and that was done, you couldn't collect. They had no more capital expenditures, that it had increased capacity, so you couldn't collect for the Concord School District. When the Merrimack Valley School District finished paying for the Pennacook School, we collected money for them for that, gave them a check every single year, and then that was all paid off, so you can't collect for that anymore. And then the Concord School District reduced the capacity of the school district, so you can't. So there's no more school collections you can do. You could do, if you did an addition to the library, if you did expansion to the library, you could do it for that. If you added a new fire station, you could do it for that. But if you simply replaced a fire station, you could not do it for that, because it's just apples for apples, right? So yeah, so you can do it. I believe there's dollars somewhere in the capital budget to take a relook at the impact fees. If you want to do it, you can always move that up and do that analysis if you want. But the council has tried to not do that for commercial. You focused on recreation, so you still collect quite a bit of recreational impact fees and residential traffic, I believe. So you do some, but not a whole lot.
Follow up?
So I haven't seen the latest iteration for the Runlet improvements, but it's my understanding that they will be introducing some artificial turf and also some lighting at that location. And it's my understanding that we could realize impact fees for that purpose and that purpose only as part of the expansion of that school.
That portion of it, you could probably calculate the number of hours that a field is available and what it can be used for. You probably could.
So that's real money that we could gain on the school side, and I appreciate what you're saying, police and fire. But I think what we're talking about, we're realizing the city's growing, and we realize that the police and fire, those facilities are inadequate and need expansion. So I think there's a driver.
And I agree with you. For the expansion portion, you can do with the expansion. You can collect fees for that. It's just a policy decision that you'll have to decide of whether or not you want to do that. And I think at one time Concord was not considered quite the place to be that it is today. 20 so years ago, when people were moving in, and I think that's the past. And to look forward to the future, there's something you could do for that. Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate your effort.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, I actually would just like to clarify or ask additional questions based on what Councilor Foote was saying. Are you saying that we have to have a plan, like say we have to have the plan for a new fire station in order for us to then levy impact fees?
You have to actually to do the improvement.
We
Yeah,
have to
you
do
have to
the,
increase the capacity.
so we have to build it first
Follow
and
up.
then follow, and then we build it first and then collect impact fees? I'm trying to understand the process.
Generally, but what happens is you have to build it to make, otherwise you're collecting, you could collect the fees, but you have to spend them within a certain amount of time to make sure that they're actually used for what their purpose is. But you couldn't just say now, yeah, we'll start collecting fees for a new fire station that you never built, and then otherwise then you got to return all the monies back, plus interest.
So, for example, we know the library, the HVAC is only good for 3 years, so we have to make a decision about the library. So, knowing that we would be faced with that decision in 3 years, we could start levying impact fees for the library.
For the air conditioning now?
No, for a new building, because I think, because the expansion is what is planned. That's why we're,
I don't think, Matt, do you have any insight?
something that's like in the CIP planned out.
Good evening.
Good
You're asking me, you want me to comment on?
So if you have a plan to build let's say you wanted to do an addition to, now of course, it would have to be, because the idea of the plan is to take down the 68 addition on the library and add to it. So the square footage that you'd actually be adding, let's say you were going to do that in 3 years, it's all hypothetical. Let's say you're going to do that in 3 years and you put it in the capital budget for 3 years from now. Could you collect fees today for that project in 3 years?
You can, yes, so impact fees can be collected for proposed either past investments in the community that expanded capacity to serve new development, if you're still paying debt service on those, for example, or you can do it to pre-plan for investments that you will make in your capital improvement program. But in accordance with the state law, which is RSA 674:21, which is the innovative land use statute, you can only, once you collect them, you have to use them within 6 years, or as the manager said, you have to refund them to the then property owner, the future property owner for which the property was paid for. It really comes down to if you're going to collect them on a speculative basis based on the capital improvement program, how real is the timing on the project that you might be building? So, and are you going to be adding capacity? So in the case of the library hypothetical example, if you're tearing off the 1960s edition and replacing it, and there's no change in square footage or capacity to serve future growth, you can't use impact fees for that purpose. You can't use it to replace the capacity you already have. You have to use it to create new capacity to serve new growth that's occurring in the community. That's the key portion of the statute.
Follow up?
Just to clarify, so now thinking about a fire station, we talked about not tearing one down, but expanding, based in a different area. So that would be expanding use. So we could levy impact fees for a fire station, future fire station.
So if you added a bay because you wanted to add an ambulance or a piece of equipment to that, you could do that for that portion that you're adding. But let's say you're renovating the rest of the building at the same time, you couldn't do it for the renovation, just the addition. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Schlosser.
Could I follow up on impact fees? So in some of our CIPs, like Memorial Field or McKee Square, there are impact fees in the revenue. At some time in the future, could we have a summary or description of what impact fees we do collect, the amount and the purposes? That would be helpful for me to inform me.
Sure.
Not to throw
Go
you
ahead.
off.
I know. Yeah.
So the planning board is actually, we have an impact fee ordinance today, and it's chapter 29(1) of the city's code of ordinances. Councilor Todd will tell you that the planning board's looking at the impact fee ordinance right now because there's an annual review process, and the planning board's not quite done with that yet, but they will potentially be this Wednesday night. And then once the board finishes their review, the ordinance requires them to provide recommendations to the city council on if there are any changes that are recommended or not. So I would anticipate that you will probably get a report about impact fees in July or August, which I think will
answer a lot of questions and will allow the council to have a more robust conversation about all of that. No pressure, planning board.
All right, seeing no further questions, thank you, Mr. Walsh. The city manager.
Okay, next we go to, get the computer booted back up here. Okay, next you'll want to go to general services. So you have to close out of this one, item number 6, go to item number 7. And for item number 7, you want to be on page 133. And on page 133, the revenues budget to budget are up $57,000 or 5%. This is an increase that is attributable to the additional rent income from the Concord School District, a portion of the debt service for the fuel farm, the new fuel farm we have up at the Combined Operation Maintenance Facility, and increases in transfers from other funds. So as the funds transfer to the general fund, the other funds also transfer into the general fund because they manage some of these too, and there's costs associated with that. The majority of the increases in the general service, sorry, I skipped this spot. On page 134, expenses budget to budget are up $562,000 or 5%. The majority of the increase for general services budget is for wages and benefits. That's $407,000 of the $562,000. Winter supply, treatment supplies are up $47,000, so that's really salt and sand. And as well as an increase in the solid waste transfer, so that's to cover the general funds portion of the solid waste. The budget also supports funds for Eagle Square downlighting. So we have to do some lighting work at Eagle Square. It's $10,000. An increase in CDL driver training. So we like to, again, training up our own folks to make sure they have their CDL license so they can do what work they need to do. That's $18,000. Also included under general services are 2 supplemental reports the council has asked for. That is downtown services. So the first section associated with the downtown services program, the fiscal year 26 budget is up $42,000, and that is really simply wages and benefit increases for all the employees based on the contracts. And the second supplementary report is for snow and ice control, and that expenses are up $82,000, and this is an increase due in part for wages and benefits, and the other ones for treatment supplies, which I just explained to you what that cost is. I'm glad to answer any questions regarding general.
Any questions for the city manager? Councilor Todd.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I just follow up on the CDL driver license. We've, of course, discussed that in the past several occasions. And the request amount was $35,000. And so you budgeted basically about half that. Right? Yeah.
That's a good.
Right. Right. But that was my question. My question was, where are we at with that generally, and is that's the funding that you feel is adequate to be able to cover what we want to do in that program?
Right. And if and again, you can see the way that that fund has been managed over time. If you go back to page 134, you can see that they do a great job keeping control of the budget, even with the winter supplies going up. So we make those dollars available, and that allows me to, if they have additional opportunities for additional training, we can undertake that work. But I didn't want to have to raise the taxes for that. If I don't have to, I didn't want you to have to raise the taxes for that. If you don't have to raise the taxes for that, if we can make it work within the existing budget, so I only put it in half. But you could justify the full amount, but again, that just increases the total budget.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Brown.
Yes, just on page 133, the different transfer ins, is this the same, type of scenario with the general government where you have a different formula for each of these based on projected services?
Work, that's part of it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Horn.
That's okay. I presume those 2 big allowance lines are the bonuses that we voted for general services to have, the 300 and something thousand?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, the allowance line? Yes, that's exactly right, yes.
say it's a lot of phones, right?
Yeah.
It's long distance call. Yeah, you remember those days?
I do. Any other questions for the city manager? All right, seeing none, Mr. City Manager, thank you so much for your presentation.
Welcome.
And as soon as the city manager steps down, we'll hold a public hearing.
Your Honor, could we have a 2-minute break?
Councilor Brown asked for a 2-minute break. We will declare a 2-minute recess.
Thanks for an excellent job. Thank you. I've done this before.
Did you get a new gavel? You broke your last gavel.
Well, I was upset. I didn't actually, they glued it. The top just flew off. City clerk's office.
Sorry, Ellie.
Right. Better call a hearing, call the meeting back to order.
The other side of the fence.
Okay.
Hey, it didn't spill.
Is there any member of the public who would like to testify? Oh, well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, and members of the council. My name is Terry Page, and I'm the Transportation Director for the Community Action Program for Belknap and Merrimack counties. Thank you very much for tonight's session. We appreciate it always, and for your ongoing support. That's invaluable to us, especially now. So I did want to answer, first of all, the question that came up in regards to the community Action Program and the $17,000 that they're requesting in regards to how it's used and where it's used. And I know that that's not my program, obviously, but I know quite a bit about the Community Action Program, so hopefully they're not going to be upset with me filling in. All of the area centers go to each of the communities in which they're actually located to request support from the municipality that they are located in. So that $17,000 is just for the Community Action Program area center that is located here in Concord. So that's the way that they always do it, is they base their ask on what, well, they obviously can use as much as they can get, but they're based on kind of the services that they provide in each of the communities that they serve. So they have multiple centers located throughout Belknap and Merrimack counties, and they go to each of the municipalities to ask for support for those services. And it's for the area center, which is the place where folks go to get connected to fuel assistance, to heating assistance, to some of the food pantry programs that they have out there. Those services that are for those that are kind of the most needy in each of the communities. So that's what I can give you for information on that. I can try to answer a couple questions if you have it, but I just wanted to help kind of clear the situation in terms of that particular piece.
Thank you. Any questions from Ms. Page? Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you. Thank you. Do you happen to know how many communities in Belknap and Merrimack County actually contribute?
I could not tell you that. Sorry, it's not my program again, so I can't give you that information for the area centers themselves. But I know it actually is posted, I believe. And if you just call the main number and ask for Beth Haywood, who's the person that runs the area centers, I know she can give that to you immediately.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Horn.
Hi, Terry. Thank you. In terms of the CAP program, I think that you asked for about 3,000 more than was allocated in this budget.
Correct.
What were you asking for? What would the further funds help you with?
So we started the Concord to Laconia connector last year, and I'm looking for match support to continue to run that particular service. It's a different service than the other fixed routes that we have that operate here in Concord. It is a fixed route, but it's a commuter route. So it's funded a little bit differently, and I could use some additional match to be able to keep that program running. And so I've asked all the municipalities that it serves, it goes from here to Concord, from Concord to Laconia to, from Concord to Boscawen to Franklin to Tilton to Laconia. And I haven't yet landed on the table for any of them yet. So it's one of those things where I'm going to be the little engine and keep asking until I hopefully get somebody to bite. So.
Follow up?
Will there be a chance you have to end that route without the further funding?
Good chance, yep. If I can't find the match, there's a good likelihood that I'm not going to be able to continue. Because the match is what allows us to draw down the federal funds for each of the programs. And given the federal funding situation right now, we just got our notice that we being FDA DOT is now in the spotlight for those scrutinies. So depending on what that looks like is how we're going to have to operate. So.
Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you. I apologize because I'm not up on how town government works. So the town of Boscawen and the town of Tilton, they have town meeting? And
they do,
Did
yes.
they pass this or they did not?
No,
So
I didn't get on the agenda, yeah, so. Well, I'm going to keep working on it.
So just Franklin, Laconia, and Concord have the requests on their municipal budgets? Or, I'm sorry.
Franklin, no, I have spoken to each of the select boards or select boards or city councils for each of the municipalities, and I haven't yet landed anywhere with anybody, so.
Sorry.
Follow up?
So only Concord has it in their budget? Laconia does?
The
Franklin
request.
does or not?
I put the request out to all of them, and so far have not had it entertained on any of them, so.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Brown.
Yes, just two questions. So if Concord were to give the 3,000 that you were asking for, would that be enough to bring you up to the match that is required, or
No.
that's only for the Concord,
Yeah.
1 out of like 5 that you passed?
Yeah, so I'm under no I have no delusions, I guess, that municipalities are going to meet the match that I need for that route. So I'm also making a concerted effort to get asks out to many of the employers, because this is a commuter run, which is designed to try to serve the employment groups within the region. So I've got asks out and am getting asked out to the major employers in the region as well to try to get some funds in that way.
My second question is going to tie into that. Which major employers in Concord are being served by this route?
That's a very good question. So I know we have folks who are coming in from, I know we have folks who are coming in to get employment at Walmart and at Target, not Target, yeah, Target. And I think there might be a couple that are going up to Concord Hospital, but it's harder to get the demographics on that because we have just the driver information that they're asking to get the transfers to go to this, this, and this. We haven't yet done a survey on the route, which is probably going to be coming so that I can get this kind of data so that I can make the asks appropriately.
Follow up. So when is the deadline for receiving the match dollars?
So my fiscal year starts July 1st. DOT, thankfully, is a little bit flexible in terms of as long as we get it during the fiscal year, we're usually okay. So I have basically until June 30th of 26 to come up with a full match. Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, actually, yes.
Councilor
follow-up.
Brown and then Councilor Todd.
Sorry. What is the full match that you need?
For the CLC specifically?
Yes.
For the CLC, I need, sorry, give me a minute to go through all the numbers in my head. So that's so it's going to be about 75,000 I need. Might be a little bit more on that one because there's more operations on that one than there is admin. We have it split. It's 50-50 for operations and it's 80-20 for admin, and that's more heavy on the operation end of it.
And Concord would only be 3,000 out of that 75.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Councilor Todd.
Thank you. My question was answered, but I'll just take the opportunity to thank Ms. Page for coming out tonight and providing that information to us, and also for her continued support and service on the Transportation Policy Advisory Committee, which is very valuable. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you all very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Terry. Is there anyone else who would like to testify? Welcome.
Howdy. Stephen Kidder, resident here in Concord. I'll make this brief. I'm really happy to hear about the police's budgeting for another social worker, but I would urge the city council to rethink what we think of when we think of public safety. I think the sheer lack of funds that went to the 25,000 that received in our budget, if I'm correct, seems like abominable number, given the fact that we have such a surge in houselessness in Concord and the surrounding areas, and the variety of other things that are happening. That I think I would like to encourage the city council to reconsider their budgets in regards to this, because I think that money, not saying that the police should not be paid for the work they're doing, that's very important, but I think we should rethink of where that money is coming from and what it's being used for. Another police station I know is important, but so is more housing, so is more social workers. So that's it.
Any questions for Mr. Kidder? Councilor Schultz.
Would you believe that I'm very happy to hear your priority concerns, and I appreciate your time here.
Thank you. Thank you. Anything else?
All right, thank you.
Have a great night.
Would anyone else like to testify? Hello, welcome.
So I'm Karen Jansen, and whoa.
Yeah.
Executive Director of the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness. So I want to thank you all so much for how much you have funded us over the years. And that money primarily goes to support our winter shelter. And I know that this request for an additional $20,000 seems like, wow, where did that come from? As you also know, Concord currently does not have a warming center. And that was a large piece of the decision over the course of this last winter for us to approach the county to open up at least one more afternoon during our regular weekday hours. In the past, to address severe cold weather, we work in tandem with the Friendly Kitchen and say, this is just so bad, we've got to stay open, how can we do this? This winter was particularly severe, and we found ourselves all of a sudden mid-February needing to be open quite a bit. So we made the staffing decision, my team, to say, let's just open up on Sunday afternoons and see what can happen. We, on those Sunday afternoons, from February till we closed at the end of March, always had no less than 45 people, sometimes up to 65 people coming in for a warm place to be. We didn't offer case management services, but we offered showers, we offered laundry, and just a quiet place for people to be. And the results of that level of engagement, we saw a huge increase of people then returning and being with us and coming back during weekday hours when we had case management on staff. This winter too, we have 40 beds in our shelter. We averaged 41. We averaged 31 people, but there were several nights when it was really cold that we were, don't tell the fire chief, but we were at like 47 people. People would come in to get out of the cold, and we just offer them a chair. We couldn't offer them, you know, a mattress to be on. Your concern about where people are coming from, this is my third season at the coalition. This was one of the most interesting years where overall we saw about 100 and 205 unique individuals. 78% of the individuals that came to the shelter this year were there the majority of the season. I mean, you know, like 2-3 months. Many of them, that was their home for the entire winter. They are Concord people. We still see them. Of the people that were there on a regular basis, 62% of them, when we were running the numbers, came and were with us pretty much every day during the week, either in the afternoon or in the morning. And of those people, we were able to assist around 35% of them getting on their pathway towards housing. And we have a number of people who are poised, who have been selected for some of the specialty housing programs, have housing choice vouchers, and we're just waiting to find an apartment, or when we finish building our South State Street project, we'll be able to house some of them there. It will be the appropriate place for them. So what is this $20,000 request for? Is for us to hire during the winter shelter season 2 more temporary seasonal staff that will open the shelter on Saturdays and Sundays and in the afternoons. And so what that will do is bridge those afternoon hours, and it works out well with the timing with what the kitchen's hours are. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Jansen?
Yes.
Councilor Kretovic.
No questions, just a debt of gratitude for all you and your staff do during the winter months. It was horrendous this year. I'm sure anybody that pays attention to the weather knows that if it snows on the weekend, it's going to snow every weekend, all winter long, much like we've seen all rain every weekend that we've had here in the spring, and we hope that things lighten up, but that's just the way weather patterns work. But I want to express our gratitude for all that you and the Friendly Kitchen did to support in the community this past winter.
Thank you.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much for all you do, and thank you to your staff as well. I know this past winter there were some questions around how often the shelter could remain open, and I had heard it was due to staffing issues and challenges. Is that correct?
No.
Could you tell me what the...
I have no idea. We actually expanded shelter hours. We opened up earlier in the evening to accommodate and match what the kitchen was doing, and gave people extra time in the morning. So typically we were open, people could start coming in at 6:30 and we had them out by 7 o'clock, and we actually changed the open time to 6 p.m. and sometimes people weren't out of there till 7:30. Then we would turn around, and if it was really bad, get in early to the resource center and just open up the doors earlier. And we typically don't open till 9 a.m. So.
Follow-up.
Thank you. And so this extra 20,000 will go toward...
2 staff that will be temporary seasonal staff that we could add into the shelter staff in order to be open on Saturday and Sunday afternoons, starting at 1 o'clock, which is when the kitchen pretty much finishes up their meal time.
Thank you.
All right. Councilor Warren.
I heard the same thing actually as Councilor Grady Sexton on the staffing, but how confident are you that you'll be able to hire? Do you have folks in mind that you'll be able to hire?
Yep, and we do, and we're also, we have resources that we can tap for, it's easier to hire temporary seasonal staff, and it's for that type of thing. There's some people who work other jobs who will do this on a Sunday or a Saturday afternoon as a secondary job, and we were fully staffed this entire winter season.
Thank you.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you. I know that there was some degree of staff turnover this year. Are you still doing case management, or?
Yes. In fact, we've expanded that team.
Follow-up. And how many do you have on staff now?
In total, in case management for the pre-housing side, there's 3 case managers, and on the housing support side, we're bringing on a 3rd person in a couple weeks.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any others?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me before you go, I have a question.
Yes.
But I do want to add my thanks, because I know, you know that I know how hard you and Val Guy at the Friendly Kitchen worked to fill the gap in a warming center, providing warming space, along with Councilor Schlosser and Roseanne Haggerty, the chairman of our steering committee on the plan to end homelessness. So I really appreciate you, and the Friendly Kitchen really stretched and became innovative and creative in trying to provide warming space during what I think is probably the coldest winter that we've had probably in the last 3 years, maybe 4 years. So I deeply appreciate that. I did have a question, and that was, of the 35% or so of the regulars who you said you put on the pathway to housing, how many people does that represent?
It's 11.
11. Terrific. That's great to hear. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
In the back. Welcome, neighbor.
Welcome.
Please identify yourself.
My name is Drew Beamer, and I live at 149 Rumford Street and serve as a member of the City Public Safety Board, although I am today here as a resident and a neighbor. Grateful for the opportunity to speak to the future we're shaping together. I want to begin by offering sincere appreciation for the exceptional work of both Concord Police and Fire. In a time of increasing demand and complexity, our public safety professionals continue to meet each and every challenge with professionalism, resolve, and dedication to the community they serve. I also want to express my heartfelt thanks to the council for your commitment to expanding housing access and fostering sustainable growth. The bold steps you've taken will shape the Concord of tomorrow, one that is inclusive, vibrant, and resilient. But to fully realize this vision, we must also prepare our infrastructure to serve the community we are creating, not only the community that we have today. I believe that this preparation includes a phased-in strategy to reinstate Engine 1 with Concord Fire. Its absence has created operational gaps that affect both coverage and response capacity, especially in and around downtown, where demand is most concentrated. Restoring Engine 1 would relieve pressure on our frontline apparatus, reduce strain on personnel, and ensure balanced service across the city. This need not happen all at once. A phased multi-year approach would allow the city to manage the investment responsibly while delivering meaningful improvement at every step. Thank you again for your leadership and vision. I urge you to consider this action as part of the broader plan for Concord's future. With the right planning, we can continue to build a city that is not only affordable, but remains safe, responsive, and strong. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Beamer? Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Beamer, for your service to Concord through the serving on the Public Safety Advisory Board. You always go above and beyond and always show up and contribute
Thank
so
you.
actively. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or statements?
Would you believe
Would
that
you
to
believe?
be true, Mr. Beamer?
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your service on the committee. Would anyone else like to testify? Mr. Schweiker. Welcome.
Good evening, mayors and members of the council. Some of you may have been around long enough. I seem to think in the old days, we had a different process whereby instead of the manager talking for 2 hours and presenting all the things, and then we used to have, he presented one at a time and people would testify after each one. And that way he didn't have to talk for 2 hours and I didn't have to talk for 2 hours. But anyway, so I'll try to get on with it. First off, we're talking about the phone reimbursement, and my understanding is there used to be, if there isn't still, a computer allowance for the city manager. And haven't we learned anything from Hillary Clinton's email server? We should have city employees using city devices for all electronic stuff. When they leave, the city should retain ownership of that. I know it's going to make more work for the IT department, but we should not have, city business being conducted on private cell phones and privately owned computers. Buy the manager a nice computer every couple of years or whatever he wants, but he shouldn't be getting an allowance. He should be using a city computer and turn it in when he leaves. And we had quite a bit of talk about the different charitable organizations, and I won't go into them except I'm going to say I think it's time to cut off In-Town Concord. Their chief goal seems to be to invent more things for the city to spend money on, and I don't know why the downtown businesses cannot put together their own membership for that. I mean, I feel very upset. The city lot I have, which is on a street that is got sidewalks that are not only not plowed, but they push the entire amount of the snow from the street onto my sidewalk, so I have trouble shoveling it. I'm paying more assessment per acre for that lot than Steve Dupree pays for the Smile Building. And why is he getting all this extra stuff for paying less taxes? The downtown needs to say, okay, if we want to have In-Town Concord support downtown, we should pay for it. Have a membership program for them. Or have, like many communities, have a special district that covers downtown to, pay for things that downtown gets that the rest of us don't, like the downtown service team. Maybe that could be paid for by a special district. They're getting more services than we are with lower assessments, and they need to start paying for it. And I remember many, many years ago when they had some people from Portland, Maine come to discuss the Housing First programs. And they were very successful. They actually were able to close one of their shelters by doing Housing First. And I asked them, well, you know, what do you need to make it work? And they said the people need to behave and they need to pay their share of the rent. And right now, we're not really doing either of those in Concord. We have people that apparently have mental health issues. We just let them live in the woods. We don't do anything for them. We have people who have addiction problems. Once again, we just let them live in the woods. And now we're talking about frail people. We need to help these people, not by saying, okay, we'll have a shelter. We need to get the frail people in the hospital where they belong. We need to get the addicts, if they can't get into a treatment program, put them in the county jail. They can dry out there. And we need to get the people with mental health issues in appropriate facilities. And note that none of these are the responsibility of the city. It's other levels of government that are supposed to be paying for the nursing home, for the jail, and for the mental health facilities. So we're just being foolish by letting these people hang around instead of saying, we'll get you the help we need. We'll refer you to who will deal with it. If that means we fill up the Concord Hospital emergency room with people, then we need to do it. Because that's really the kind thing to do, is not letting people live in the woods, not letting us know who's out there and may murder passing hikers someday. We need to get this thing taken care of. And once again, I will say, we really need an official campground so we can have people not staying wherever they want in the woods, but in one place where they sign in. And this gets to the second half of what they said in Portland. They need to pay their share. This campground should have a fee associated with it. And it should be a sliding scale. If they have no money, they don't have to pay. But someone who is getting a Social Security disability, that averages $1,500 a month. That's not as much as the city manager makes. But if you consider that the government is giving these people free food, free medical care, free cell phone, $1,500 a month may be more than a lot of people in the city have to spend on themselves. They can afford to pay toward that campground or towards something else. It's the same thing. I'm told that the CCEH shelter costs $40 a night per person to run. If that is true, how many of these people, if you said, would you rather stay here, would you like to take $40, would say, I'll take the $40, I'll give $20 to my buddy to sleep on his sofa, and I'll have $20 to spend on whatever. So we need to, start letting people that have money share in their own costs. So, okay, I guess that's all for part one. Part two, was it police or fire that was next? Anyone remember?
It was police.
Okay, police. I have a couple of things to say about police. Number one of the reasons we have a shortage of officers is the city just recently voted to grossly increase the amount of annual leave to like 2 or 3 times what anybody in the private sector gets. And, maybe that's fair instead of giving them more money, but it's like taking a couple of firefighters and a couple of police officers off the street by giving them all more annual leave. So what we need to do, since we cannot rescind the annual leave, is see if we can get the unions to agree to a program in which some of the people that would rather work those hours could work those hours at regular pay in addition to getting the annual leave for them. Because that would get us good people to do those things and at the same time, allow people who don't really know what to do with 6 weeks off the ability to work at a job they apparently like. Another thing is, I think that years ago I tried to get body cams for the police for the new officers as part of the training. That didn't work. Then I thought we approved body cams for police officers. I'm told they still don't exist. I was told of an incident a while back where a woman who was 59 years old was manhandled by an officer and handcuffed so severely that she got a welt on her wrist that the hospital told her she needed stitches. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to have something like that on a camera so we could do something about it? But when are we going to get those cameras operating? And the last thing is the parking officers need to do their job, which is all the parking in the city and not just being meter maids downtown. The neighborhoods are, jammed with illegal parking on weekends and nights, but those people don't seem to work then. We need to put people on those shifts to do things. And they could even do one other interesting thing for us. And that is that there are people in the legislature who don't seem to think that property tax is not high enough. And so they want to give developers a break and make the local communities pay for development stuff instead. And one of the things in particular is there's this bill in the legislature that you cannot require more than one parking space per unit. Well, guess what? I did a survey on my street, and nearly every unit on that street has got more than one car. I'm probably one of the few that has only one. Some of them have as many as three. And so if we're saying, okay, the developer only has to provide one, then this means the city is going to be stuck, either providing parking garages or parking lots, and or you let them park on the sidewalk and block the sidewalk and half the street because you don't have any parking officers to go out and give them tickets when they do it. So we need to have somebody on the night shift parking to go out and give tickets to the people who are offending. I'm sure they could pay for their salaries. And the second thing is, I asked the chief if I could do a survey, we do a ride along at night to see how many cars actually were parked at each place. He said, no, we don't allow civilians to do ride-alongs at night. But if I drove and did it myself, no one would believe me. But if you had the parking officer, do their parking survey as part of their patrol at night, then you'd have official authority to tell you how many cars really are there per housing unit, so the legislature can come up with a realistic number instead of saying, okay, we'll just make the city pay for it. And the last thing is, I won't say it today, I'll save it for later with the capital budget. So now we'll go on to the fire department. And I was really shocked, and I think you people need to look at a certain page in there. In 2024, which is the last year there are figures for, there were in the city 7,477 EMS incidents. There were 69 structure fires. That's a ratio of 100 to 1. So you don't have a fire department. You have an EMS department that every week puts out 1.5 fires. I think if you did a survey, the typical firefighter in Concord goes to maybe 1 fire per week. Is this real? We have a lot of people, in the fire department, but they don't put out very many fires. They have some funny kind of things that weren't defined. They have service calls. Well, assuming that's service to somebody. They have good intention calls. Well, I'm glad that people have good intentions in the fire department, but it didn't say what they were. And then there's false alarms. There's 949 false alarms in 2024, which is 15 times as many as there were actual fires. Maybe it's time that somebody puts up some cameras at the call boxes or something, because, a ratio like that can't stand. We're wearing out our fire trucks as taxis. We had it used to be in the old days that a fire truck was given a life of 10 years as a principal thing, and then another 10 years in reserve. That's been cut to 8. And most people would say cars are more reliable than they used to be. So fire trucks should be lasting longer instead of less long. But that's not the case, because we're using them to apparently go to all these false alarms and EMS calls when we don't need a fire truck for it. And this is something I suggested before, and I'll say it again. We do not need Fire Engine 1 to go to 1.5 fires per week. What we need to do is increase the ambulance service. And what I suggested was, once again, you're having trouble getting firefighters. Well, most of your calls don't involve structure fires. So you should take one of the ambulances and staff it with paramedics only. These people are not certified to fight fires. They don't have to go running into burning buildings. All they do is provide really good medical care. You could probably hire some really good paramedics who aren't interested in running into fires, who would be exemplary in paramedic service. And if you said instead of working 24-hour shifts, they worked 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, you might get more women in these jobs who don't find the 24-hour shifts working. But, here's a way to get more people for the fire department, good people that you're not presently considering. Just like the police department decided we could do with some social workers instead of more people with guns. How about let's have more paramedics in the fire department that do not have to be certified as firefighters? Let them run one entire ambulance. And what I'm going to suggest is that be the one in Central Station. Every ambulance call, if they're available, you send that ambulance and the one that's closest from the other areas. Then the one from Central Station does the transport. That way the engine doesn't have to leave the station. It's still available if you get a fire call, but at the same time, you're not wearing out a $1.2 million vehicle chasing around for someone with a medical call. And you have 2 units there, the one from Central Station and the other one, to provide extra manpower. Okay, I guess now we're nearly to the end. Back to the general services. There were some questions about CDL training. And like I said, when I worked for the state, we had an organization that was about the same as the size of the Concord General Services, and we did not provide CDL training officially by buying them lessons. We let people practice driving the truck that they were going to be using on the job with another employee riding with them. And that way they got experience in the truck they were going to use. We didn't have to pay the tuition fee. We didn't have to lose them off somewhere because they were probably driving to a work thing we had. And I think that that is generally used elsewhere. I know that's what they do with school buses. They don't send the school bus drivers off to learn to drive a truck. They teach them to drive the bus they're going to drive. And you can ask the fire chief, I haven't bothered, do they have CDL training for the firefighters who are driving, often cases, bigger stuff than what the general services people do, or do they train them in-house? I don't know, does the town of Bedford pay for CDL training, or do they train them in-house? So I think we need to consider, instead of spending $35,000 on something we could do better ourselves, let's do it better ourselves. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Schweiker. Any questions from Mr. Schweiker? Councilor Foote.
Mr. Schweiker, just want to personally thank you for participating and volunteering on our trash cleanup day last month. So your efforts were noticed, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I was really impressed with your wife. She could get a job with the city as a manager.
Yes, I hear that often. Most people.
I also love your wife. Yeah. I do too, and I've actually worked with her. In fact, I think she reported to me, but I'm not sure she thinks that she did.
Wow, city council meeting.
Any other questions from Mr. Schweiker? Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Schweiker,
you.
as always.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Any other, would anyone else like to testify? Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Welcome.
My name's Alan Robitis. I am a Ward 5 resident. I also happen to work for your fire department. I'm not here to testify on behalf of the fire department tonight. I'm not here to provide any testimony whether or not I support the budget. I'm really here tonight to shine a light on some of the numbers I heard tonight. I didn't get a chance to write them down. I'm not much of a typist. I don't have any computer or anything to go to. But the numbers just don't make sense when it comes to emergency services in this city. The manager's testimony was wonderful. His numbers are stout, to say the least. We also heard him articulate on a number of occasions that the swell in Concord's population seems to be driving an increase in the need for emergency services or the emergency services calls. By memory, if I recall correctly, we heard him say tonight that the calls for service at the police department are somewhere near 50,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ballpark. So I've been a resident of this community for 25 years, plus or minus. It's not hard data to find that the population of this community has gone up about 10% in that time frame. Thereabouts, you can make the numbers do whatever you want. If truly the increase in population is what's driving the increase in call volume for these agencies, then by my tabulations, somewhere around the police department in the last 25 years has increased their calls for service somewhere around 5,000 calls a year. I would wager to say that the police department's doing more than that in the last 25 years. With the little bit more intimate knowledge I have for emergency services, which exists on the fire side, as you could probably imagine. The reality is, in the last 25 years, call volume has gone up like 70%. So if this is all truly driven by a population increase in this community, you would expect, if you plotted this out on a line graph or a chart, that those two lines would run somewhat parallel to each other. Instead, there's a massive divergence. And the idea that we heard tonight, that at some point we're going to have to consider increasing our service level provided to the community, and we should do that in due time when our population dictates it, I would say something else is driving this increase. I would say maybe it's homelessness. Maybe it's the leftover opioid crisis. Maybe it's the increased population that we see just behind 281 North State Street. Perhaps it's the aging baby boomer population. Perhaps it's the growth that we have seen or the type of population we've welcomed to our community. But something else is going on in the city of Concord. And I can assuredly say to you, it isn't just due to a small population increase. And I can also tell you, if you wait, it's only going to get worse. I believe it was, if I can paraphrase here, I believe it was Councillor Kravik that asked, if there's a critical point in which these departments are going to become overrun, and I'm paraphrasing clearly. I think perhaps the more appropriate question is, when did these agencies get overrun? If we wait, let's wait for another 4,000 people. What is the number? I don't have any of that information. You have brilliant department heads behind me that could answer those questions better. But clearly we're not trending at an increase on the same track of our population. There's something else going on. There's some other burden on emergency services. There's more to it than just population. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Robitis? Councilor Horn.
In your ideal world, does that mean more buildings, more apparatus, more staff, all of the above?
Again, I'm not here to testify on behalf of the fire department. I'd love to have those guys come sit with me. But nonetheless, in my ideal world, as a taxpayer, as a resident of Ward 5, I'd love to see the city consider a moratorium on building permits. I mean, if we're already overrun, why are we going to ask for more? Now, the reality is that's never going to happen. But at some point, something's got to give.
Councilor Keach.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm trying to find out what the tipping point is here with you. Like, what's the tipping point? Like, what changed? Like, you've lived here a lot of years.
Yeah.
Like, what changed and what, when did that happen?
Yeah, I wish I could give you an exact moment in time or an exact circumstance in the history of my time here that did it. Truth be told, I think it's a confluence of all of the above, right? I think we've lived through the COVID crisis, and there's still leftover calls for COVID coming in for all emergency services across the state. We don't have to, we can extrapolate that information very easily. We could go further to say that we heard about testimony tonight, and you guys beat it around, and I know it's something that this council, this body certainly is frustrated with, the burden that the state puts on us, right? And we all get to pay for it, let's be honest. Well, the state keeps growing, right? That's proven by the women's prison that's gone in. To say that hasn't increased the burden on at least the fire side, we would be remiss, right? Of course it has. So I don't know as if I could give you some sort of empirical data that says this is the day, this was the time, this was the event. But I think something else is going on. I mean, we all watch WMUR, right? They're flirting with the idea, they're considering the idea of hanging suicide prevention signs over the Piscataqua Bridge. You guys have heard this probably, right?
Already started.
Yeah. So, again, it's not empirical, but perhaps we could all admit that the mental health crisis is starting to get worse if we're hanging signs on bridges that say don't jump off, right? And I hate to be that crass about this, but there is more to it than an increase of population of 5,000 or 4,600 or whatever the number is. There's a lot more going on here, and if you draw that conclusion from that very oversimplistic piece of data, well, then we're all ignorant for it.
Follow up?
Fair answer, and I asked an impossible question, so.
Yeah,
thank
no,
you.
I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Councilor Grady Sexton, then Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it so much.
I appreciate it.
I had
very
heard secondhand that during the period of time when the fire department and the stations had closed down for a 12-hour period so that the firefighters could pay respects to fallen firefighter C.J. Gerard, that the Keene Fire Department as well as Manchester Fire Department sort of staffed our stations during that time, and that many of them relayed to community members that they were absolutely overwhelmed during that time. Could you speak to why that might be and what you're hearing from other communities in terms of what happens here versus in other communities?
Yes, I mean, I can. If you want
I'd love to hear
you're
it.
gonna
As a Ward 5
I don't-
citizen,
like,
I would love to hear just sort
I'm
of
trying not to
what
step
that
in
meant.
two arenas at the same time. They were blown away by how busy Concord is. Ridiculous. The city of Dover, probably our closest comp, if you guys are talked tonight, something got brought up about the wage study. Dover, New Hampshire is probably our closest comp within the state of New Hampshire, right? Those guys were blown away by how out of control the call volume was out of Broadway Station. The best man in my wedding happens to be a Dover Fire Lieutenant. So they were aghast at what's going on. Keene felt the same way. Manchester sent an engine company up here to cover, and they were complaining because they couldn't eat lunch. I mean, this is what we're dealing with every day. And we talk a lot. I pay attention to this, right? I'm not nearly as civic as you folks. I appreciate all your work. I know it's thankless at times. But we talk about why we can't retain people. We talk about why we can't attract people. We talk about wages. We have a wage study coming. I hope that takes care of itself, I'd like to think, right? Workload is out of hand in this community. It's out of control. I don't know why a new person would come work here when they know that they're going to go from call to call to call and not get the training that they need day to day. It's just an impossible task at this point. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but here it is.
I appreciate your candor. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight and testifying. I think this is what we need to hear. I think we do need to do like a deep dive. I think we do need to do this analysis. I think hearing from our social workers, the trends that they're seeing, because, you know, what she had testified, she's going through reports, identifying those trends. I think the school is seeing it when 43% of Concord public school students qualify for free and reduced lunches. This is an issue, so I think we really need to kind of partner with the school in that to identify what's happening at this level so that we can better address it. So I really appreciate you pointing that out from your perspective, because I think you're absolutely right. 100%.
Questions? All right. Oh, Councilor
It's not a question, but I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you, because you raised some great point. But I would love at some point to know, because as you mentioned, the raise of the population is one factor out of the many that you could not list today. But at some point, I would love to know deeply, when you get your time, to write few bulletin points that you think, as you said, it's deeper than what we see, and to highlight even two for us so that you can implement that curiosity more in our mind, because this is something that I always question, the why behind it, but I cannot answer none because I am not there. So thank you guys for your service. We would love to know what's going on in the deeper side of it.
Yeah, I appreciate that curiosity for sure.
Anyone else? Thank you for your testimony.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for the work you do for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Rapidas.
Would anyone else like to testify? Right, seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. We will reconvene